PM. Mel, can you please take roll call?
Bertle,
Here.
Bell,
Here.
Shampoo,
Here.
Gretzmacher is absent, Payne
Here.
and Hart.
Here. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Motion by Bell,
Second.
second by Kane. All those in favor respond with an aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Here. Approval of the December 12th, 2023 minutes. Are there any corrections, comments?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Bell,
Second.
second by Kane. All those in favor respond.
Yes, again.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Comments, correspondence, and concerns from the public. Is there anybody joining us tonight that would like to address the Plan Commission? Julie, do you want to take us through, or Janelle correspondence? I don't know who wants to.
Okay, there was an email and attachments that were submitted by Steve Musinski. And that documentation was included in the digital meeting packets. It pertained to shared driveways. And that's the only correspondence that I'm aware of.
Okay.
But just a note on that one, that is some information that the Plan Commission had asked him to, he said he had and he, we asked him to send it to us, so he sent it to us. He also sent a letter regarding the Premier Properties case, which I'll bring up at that time.
Okay, item number 6, housing study, Stantec Consulting. Hello again,
See me yet?
a little bit.
Yeah.
I'd really like to see Tom.
You should be here.
Do you not see me?
There we go.
Oh, okay.
I see you all.
So
How should we start? Am I starting or is Skylar starting?
why don't you go ahead, Tom?
All right, thanks, Julie. So my name is Tom Layton. I'm gonna talk about some of the context for this ambitious and much needed project, and Skylar is going to follow me. We're a team of professionals who are hired by the city of Sister Bay to look at this possibility of providing housing that meets the needs of your workforce through various mechanisms. And I want to say at the outset, it's been a real pleasure to work with Julie and others in the community on this project, and admire you for going down this path and undertaking something that meets clear community needs. So I am one of the co-leaders of the development economics team in Stantec for North America. And it was my job to look at the market context for this development. And we thought about it in three stages.
Maybe we just shut that off.
Thought about that in three stages. One is we wanted to see and understand Sister Bay's unique context, market context for housing.
Can you just hold on a second?
Yep.
Just hold on a second.
Sure.
Whoever is out there, thank you. Okay, go ahead, Tom.
Number two, we wanted to estimate the demand for different housing products, and that's really important, feeding into the design of the mix of housing. And third, to look at a set of strategies and implementation tools that could be utilized to make this happen. So I have a brief overview of that work, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen if I am authorized to do that. So let's try it. I'm disabled. Is someone able to undisable me so I can share my screen?
I can do that. Why wouldn't this be working? Do you know how to do share screen?
I rarely use Zoom.
Oh, okay.
It'll be somewhere under your,
Yeah, I see share screen.
under
Are
your
we actually the admin or is it
tools
that?
or settings.
I'm the admin here. Okay. Do you know how I designate you to share, Tom?
As a panel, you can make a panel, then they are allowed to.
At this
Sure.
point, if I click share screen, it says that the host has disabled that. You'll
Yes.
have a setting that allows you to
Really?
allow participants to share their screens.
Okay, how about that?
Perfect. Okay. Sorry for the wait. There we go. So I'll be discussing it in under those topics. First of all, Sister Bay has a unique economy, and I don't think this is news to anybody. The orange represents the share of your jobs that are in service sector industries, hospitality, food and beverage, things of that kind. So a lot of the employment in Service Bay is of that type. This is really interesting in that, and I'm just looking at the circles on the right side of the screen, in that you have many more people that are commuting into Sister Bay to work than you have people who are living in Sister Bay and working outside Sister Bay. So it's really a jobs destination. One of the reasons that there may be so many more in-commuters is because in order to find housing that is affordable to that workforce, many people can't afford to live in Sister Bay. Looking at some of the demographics, looking at the chart on the left, this just shows the population as tracked by the Census Bureau. It has increased over this decade, and particularly over the last few years of the decade. The census data doesn't, the 2020 we can understand is pretty reliable. So, and then it estimates from there on. You can see in this chart that Sister Bay and Egg Harbor are the two cities in our comparisons that have grown in that respect. Door County has stayed relatively flat. This is a chart that shows income of residents for Sister Bay, Egg Harbor, and some of the other comparisons. And the lower income segments are at the left in each of these clusters, and the higher income segments are at the right. So Sister Bay, the vast majority of the population earns $100,000 or less, and very few of your permanent full-time population earn more than that. So it skews towards a lower income population. Quite a few people that are earning 20 to 60,000 per household. This is a chart these are charts that show average rents in Sister Bay, and this is based on people asked by the Census Bureau on an annual basis. So a sample of people annually, rents, and you can see that rents have grown over this decade plus. And interesting that Sister Bay was at the low end of the comparisons in 2009 and at the high end of the comparisons in terms of rent levels in 2021. The chart at the right looks at the percentage of those renter households that are cost burdened, and cost burdened is a expression that in technical terms it means that household is paying more than 30% of their income on their housing costs. And when you're a lower income household and you're paying more than 30% of your income on your housing costs, you have that much less income to take care of all the other needs of life. So it becomes a burden. So that's considered a housing cost burden. And you can see that, again, Sister Bay had a lower percentage of your renter households that were cost burdened in 2009. And in 2021, you're at the top of the list in terms of almost 60% of the renter households in the most current census year were housing cost burdened. In terms of home values, Sister Bay has also, and all the comparisons have seen a rapid increase in recent years. This chart does take us up to 2023 because it's not based on census, it's based on Zillow. And Sister Bay homes on the average are the highest value homes of all the comparisons. And that's not necessarily a challenge for those who are living in the homes, depending on whether they may not be paid, depending on their mortgage level, but to buy those homes when they're on the market it's very expensive. This is a chart that shows a comparison between what has happened since 2009 through 2021 to rent levels compared to what's happened to income levels. So that's a real, and this is in Sister Bay. So that's explains a lot of the situation where your current renter households are cost burdened because the average rent level has gone up so much higher than incomes over that period. The next thing we had to do in Sister Bay, is tease out the different types of or what homes are used for, and it's a unique environment. It's an environment where people own homes for a lot of different reasons, and I guess it's unique in a sense in this region. It's not like most cities in Wisconsin, but tourist destinations often have this characteristic. So one of the comparisons you'll see later on was with a tourist town in Colorado. Have a similar characteristic where the existing housing stock is in demand for residents, but it's also in demand for people who want a second home and have the means to buy a second home. And it's also in demand for people who want to utilize a home as an income producing property as a vacation rental by owner or some other short-term rental situation. So there were some units that were added in Sister Bay over the past decade. More so, if you look at the chart on the right, more so than the comparison communities. And these charts start to show how those homes are used for different purposes. The chart at the left is what the Census Department calls homes used for seasonal, recreational, or occasional use. You can think of these as second homes for people. And you can see in Sister Bay, pretty consistently over this time period, about 50% of the housing stock in Sister Bay was used for second homes. The chart at the right, the Census Department categorizes short-term rentals as vacant for rent. So these are homes that people are not generally living in, they're just being rented out. And you can see over this period that there was a dramatic increase in homes being converted into short-term rentals. So some from under 50 homes to over 300 homes over this 6-year period were converted to short-term rentals. So you can see this convergence of demand, sources of demand on the homes in Sister Bay. This data is pulled from CoStar, which isn't very complete in terms of capturing your rental apartment stock, but the ones it has brings that data from 2021 all the way to the present time and shows that even in the last 3 years, these market rate apartment developments have had a dramatic increase in the rents that they're charging. And you can see from this chart on the right that the vacancies in your apartment stock are extremely low, and that puts pressure, further pressure on those properties to raise rents, because if vacancies rates are at zero, the property owners understand they can raise rents, and there aren't vacant units for people to move into. So that's a little bit about the housing mix. And I hope it sort of conveys this unique circumstance that you're facing, where multiple sources of demand, increasing demand, some increase in housing stock, but not roughly the amount increase in housing stock to make up for the conversions to short-term rentals. The next thing we did is did some analysis to estimate demand. And I want to say at the outset that we are estimating demand on a product that doesn't exist in the nearby area. So we can't directly observe what's the demand going to be for modest single-family homes, townhomes, perhaps rental of different kind that's really targeted to the workforce, and it's priced slightly below market rate through some support of different kinds that are under consideration. That product doesn't exist, so we can't directly observe that. So what we do is we look to every source of information that we can and sort of build a composite impression of what the demand for that might be. So the first thing we do is we look at the closest comparisons that we can find, and there are none that have been underway for a while, but there's one in Sturgeon Bay that is a very similar concept, and through some city support and mechanisms is able to be priced at slightly below market rate, and is also restricted to Door County workforce. So they have just started marketing those units, and there's been a strong response to that. There's also a townhome development in Fish Creek that has not produced any units yet, but are starting to get an early sense of demand. So those are things we can take into consideration. The second thing we do is a bit of analysis, making a set of assumptions, starting with a population pool that may be interested in the housing here, and applying some filters to that, and I'll walk you through that. So that's a little bit more of an analytical methodology. And then the third is to get input from local experts and community. And we did talk to a couple of local experts that had some opinions about the level of demand that you might see, or that they might see, or that they plan to see in their comparable developments. And that maybe you can think of that as averaging out to about 15 purchases a year in the kind of product mix that you're offering. The community, I'm sorry, is someone asking a question?
No.
Okay. Are people still with me?
Sorry, yeah.
Okay. The community response in the open house was just extremely enthusiastic, and there were some interesting pieces of information that were gathered from that gathering in terms of what people could afford, in terms of what kind of housing they would prefer. And one of the things I thought was very interesting was that people had their hopes and dreams about the kind of housing they would afford, and they had their limitations. And I talked to several people who are very clear that they knew they may not get everything they want in a home, but it's still of value to own a home that may be more modest, but that they could call their own. So they know there's a tension there, and part of what you'll be finding out is the choices that people actually make in this regard. So this is the quantitative side of those four methodologies, 4 points of input, we started with the demand pool of all of the workers in Sister Bay, according to, it's not the Census Department, it's a function called On the Map. That is 622 people. I'm gonna, for Julie's sake, I'm gonna correlate that back to this chart, where all the people who work in Sister Bay are 71 plus 551. That's our base, our demand pool, and from there we have incomes, rough income levels of those people, so we can estimate the number of people that would qualify for a mortgage. Of those, we are estimating that a quarter of those people who are employed in Sister Bay see that as a job that is a long-term job for them. So they may want to set down roots on that basis. And of those, we're estimating that 15% a year may feel that time is right. They have the flexibility and interest in a given year to move into one of the new homes in the development. Now, you may make different estimates in each of these levels. There's no science to choosing a quarter and 15%. When we get down to 245, that's pretty scientific, but the others, there's no science to that. You may make different estimates, but we're just getting a plausible number that we can bring into the mix. That gave us an estimate for over 5-year periods. The other thing I'll add to that is that we do expect that there's pent-up demand. So your initial interest may be stronger than your long-term flow. So that gave us a way to estimate that over ownership homes, we're estimating 80 single-family homes and townhomes, and an additional demand for some rental if you provide that, and then over the subsequent 5-year periods, these numbers. Then we also found a real demand for rental apartments. I think if that's built under some of the same scenarios, I think you'll find a strong demand for that as well. That demand depends on a lot of things. The more price diversity you offer, the more product diversity you offer, and the more diversity in the markets you reach out to, including seniors, perhaps, including people that work to some distance outside of Sister Bay, the more demand you'll find for those products. I think the takeaway from this is we think there will be strong interest in the proposed housing. And we know from that community meeting that the idea of, housing that is meant to support your local workforce just was embraced and celebrated. I'll make this quick. I know I've gone over my 10 minutes, but we took some time to look for some case studies, comparable developments. These are the two I referred to that are close to Sister Bay and really have lessons to learn from them. The one in the Geneva Ridge development in Sturgeon Bay and some condo duplexes in Fish Creek. In that Sturgeon Bay project, the city owns the property. They are taking on the street and utility infrastructure. They're hiring a builder to build them, and then they're transferring title to the owners. Those owners will need to be full-time employees of Door County businesses, and they're going to be deed restricted to prohibit them from offering their homes as short-term rentals. The one that we detailed in Colorado was one that was a program that had been developed by the Telluride Foundation. They called it the Rural Homes Initiative. And they used a set of strategies to keep the cost down. They used modular factory-built homes. They only built on donated land, and they did find generous people who donated land. They raised a capital fund. Restrictions they put on purchasers is that for their homes, the homeowners needed to, well, I don't think I even have on here, it needs to be the local workforce, which is also true, but they need to reside in the home at least 9 months of the year. There's an income limit on what they can earn. And they restrict the value appreciation of the home so that the next time the home is sold, it's also an affordable home for the next owner. So I won't go into these, but part of our deliverable was also to collect a set of financing mechanisms and strategies that could be considered in putting this together for your community. So that's the summary of the work we did. Again, that we're seeing strong demand. It sets up the subdivision exercise, the planning exercise, because it gives an idea of the range of homes and some of the types of homes that we see a market for. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Tom. So, as Tom said or mentioned, there was a session on December 9th where we met with, people that were interested in owning a home in Sister Ray. And we invited it to the workforce. They had to have a job. And we had a really good turnout. We had anywhere from 58 to 64 households respond to our, the questions that we asked. Most of them were in person. We had a handful that weren't able to make the meeting or the presentation, and instead they showed up later, but they helped provide some guidance for how we should be maybe structuring that subdivision. The Plan Commission had showed favor towards a cluster subdivision. One of the challenges is there's not a lot of features out there to cluster around. So we asked the people, what would you want? And they basically wanted the same things that we had talked about. They wanted clustering, they wanted conservation type development, they wanted a trail around the property, they wanted sidewalks, they wanted community gardens. They favored ranch style homes or like a craftsman cottage style type home more so than a modern style home, which makes more affordable style homes. So they gave us a lot of direction on that. And from there, Stantec, Skylar, who's with us, just prepared a concept plat, something that he's just going to share with you quick. And if we have time at the end of the meeting, we'd actually like the Plan Commission to work on a little bit, because it's just a concept, and we have to talk about lot size and those things so he knows how to tweak it. But Skylar, do you want to maybe just quick show them the plat and run through that?
It's over in the corner here from last week, so let me pull it out here easily.
Do you want me to put it on the screen as well, Skylar?
Sure, you got it.
Yeah.
So we took Tom's numbers, everybody see it there? Of demand for your subdivision, and split it up among a mix of single-family residential homes, which came from the public input session, which Julie mentioned, which is ranch, single-family with a granny flat, sort of an accessory structure, and cottage / craftsman style. With that, we also added duplexes, townhome areas, sort of multiple occupancy dwellings. And then we also added some J1 visa housing down in the corner here. Our intent here was to do mainly single family residential, owner occupied, or potentially single family residential rentals, not apartments, although you do have a demand for apartments. There is a large area up here, which is sort of earmarked as a phase 2 development due to some utility issues. That would be a great place to place apartments if you went to go down that route. That has its own issues and headaches with it, with ownership and placement. So that is something we can discuss perhaps later today. We sized these homes based on, again, that public input session where people seem to desire rather, I would say, large modest homes. 2-bedroom plus garages were deemed as maybe not necessary, but highly desirable. So we set this up with ranch style homes, widths starting at 75 feet in a front spacing along the road. That gives you enough space for a 2-car garage and a 2+ bedroom ranch style home. And then we jumped it up to an 80-foot, 85-foot and 90-foot widths in the front. Those are all up for discussion here, and I think we'll get to that later. But those allow for a single family homes that range anywhere from your minimum 900 all the way up to 1,500 or 1,600 square foot, which could be 3-bedroom, 3+ bedroom even. Duplexes are earmarked for an area on the bottom of the map here. Those could be duplexes, quadplexes, you name it, any sort of multiple occupancy dwelling. Again, the granny flats are cottage craftsman style homes with an accessory area in the backside for a secondary dwelling unit, a small mother-in-law granny flat suite. And then the cottage craftsman style are similar to the ranch style in terms of overall layout. They do have a conjoined driveway where 2 houses are fed off of 1 driveway, reducing your infrastructure costs and generally making the lot sizes a little bit smaller, just a little higher. The other things in this layout is we really strove for connectivity of everything in terms of pedestrian and bike walk use. We have a trail system that wraps around the entire development and through the development, and sidewalks on both sides of every street, so that from every single lot, you can walk out your front door and be a pedestrian and get to any other spot on this development. There's also parks. You can see these in the green here. They are both placed for use of people in terms of they are in the center of positive development here. And they're also placed in the sort of downslope areas where we're going to have to account for stormwater. So those are marked as sort of the edge areas along here. It also adds a good buffer to your wastewater treatment plant, which is another issue we can talk about later. We found some setback issues on that. Generally, that's the bulk of the layout. The utilities, everything can be fed from the wastewater treatment plant. What you see right here is able to be served with gravity sewer, so it's cheap, you don't have any lift stations, and you have adequate water size and pressure at the wastewater treatment plant to feed all of this. As we go up the hill to this phase 2 area, you are going to need to increase your water pressure somehow with the booster station or extra pumps, and your gravity sewer gets a little harder to serve. So we've earmarked that as sort of phase 2. Let's figure out what works here, how this works, and then we can start moving up into phase 2. So I think we'll attack this a bit later in the discussion for review, or do you have?
I just have one question that I
Yes.
want to address now because you brought it up. What is the wastewater treatment plant issue? How many feet do we have? Can we?
So I have been talking to DNR, Dave Haas, who is the Northeast Region wastewater treatment guy. And NR 110 says that there is a 500-foot isolation buffer to your wastewater treatment plant. The intent of NR 110 was more for to make sure that a placement of a wastewater treatment plant did not impact existing residential, meaning that it was written more for the existing infrastructure, new wastewater treatment plant, make sure you weren't encroaching on any sort of residential area. There are the possibility of waivers. Since you own both of these properties, you could potentially grant yourself a waiver to allow residential development within that 500-foot buffer. That's a item for you guys to discuss. Otherwise, other options are you can have any sort of institutional use in there. If you want to do, your park maintenance building, if you want to ship that way over, an ice rink, all of these other ideas that are out there floating around, or we could just earmark it as a large park green space area. But yeah, it's a 500-foot buffer.
To protect current neighborhoods. And that's why we could get a waiver because.
Yes, for example, you have a neighbor here, private residential guy. If he wanted to split this lot and build a house here, he would basically sign a waiver saying he's okay building a house that close to a wastewater treatment plant. So if he has the ability to do it, you guys have the ability to do it. It's on you to accept the responsibility of knowing that you're within a 500-foot buffer area.
So to follow up on that, Gibraltar was told 750 feet.
So there are-
Can you talk about the difference?
Yep, so there's 3 tiers of buffers, and they depend on the type of effluent treatment you have. You have basically all mechanical here, which is the most minimum, which is 500 feet. Can't remember exactly the categories, but the next one is like open lagoons, which are 750 feet. And then the third one is, I forget what it is, but it's 1,000 feet. So
Okay.
we're at the minimum of.
So
the-
their information was correct for their treatment?
Yes, yep.
Okay. Thank you.
On this subdivision plat too, if we consider a waiver, you'll notice that the majority of the housing that falls within that buffer zone is the J1 or is duplexes. Now, there are some single family out there which we can move around, but, maybe that becomes apartments or something. I don't know, but the majority of the single family homes are outside of that buffer area.
Exactly. And I think once we land on the size of lots that we really want to put in here, we do start shuffling things around and try and move those as a good faith effort as far away from that 500-foot buffer as we can. So,
Thank you.
is that up here?
To address it again at the end of the meeting, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Did you have anything else you wanted to say, Julie?
No.
Okay. Did anybody else have any questions right now on the presentation that Tom gave us?
Yeah, so that 600 number has come out pretty publicly, a number of times, and there's still the confusion in there. I really hope you can get it for Saturday's presentation to have households clarified on that, on the first few pages of that. Because that is confusing, and I do think that 600 is a little overstatement of what the actual household, the demand is.
Tom, are you still on?
Yeah, I am. And the 622 isn't the measure of demand. It's a measure of a population pool that is a source of demand. And to understand the demand, you apply some filters to that. So we applied a filter that relates to income. We applied filters that relate to the sense that worker might see their job as one that is their long-term permanent job. And we applied a filter that relates to the sense that they may feel ready to disrupt their life and move in a given year. So the 622 is not the measure of demand. It's just a pool from which we expect most of your demand will come. It's all it's the equivalent to the number of jobs in Sister Bay, the workers in Sister Bay.
Tom, would you say, I think when we were talking, you had explained it that 622 people, not households, in the area
Mhm.
that would potentially build a home or buy a home, I'm sorry, in Sister Bay, correct?
There are 622 individuals who work in Sister Bay. Yeah, so they're your primary target for this product.
Again, I would
Now-
implore you
Go
to
ahead.
please change the wording in that before this Saturday, because it does say households in there and that's what people are looking at and they have referenced.
Tom, he's
I
referring,
certainly can clarify that that's individuals. And we don't have data from the Census Department on number of households that have an individual coming in. So we use that individual data. And there could be instances where there are 2 people in a household that households would be a smaller number than the individual. It would be slightly smaller because there might be 2 people in that household who work in Sister Bay. I felt like that was offset because there also could be, additional. Okay, I'm not I'm not remembering what I thought was the countervailing factor, but there was a countervailing factor I thought that would, that could potentially offset that. But at any rate, yes, I can clarify that language.
Tom, I think they're looking
Yes.
for, if I understand correctly, correction in the actual document, because when you read that chart, as you go down, it's talking household, household, household. And as you go across with the asterisk, it's talking people. So there, it's confusing, you know, are we talking households or are we talking people? So I think, Nate, you're just referring to really making it more clear in that text, when he describes it, but also in the document itself, correct?
Right, when it says total households and it says 622, the average reader is gonna read that and say, oh, there's 622 households.
Yeah, yeah.
That I see as an issue, and that's something that was brought up last week. I was kind of hoping.
I remember that, yes, and I'll clarify that language. I remember the countervailing factor I was thinking of, and that is that I don't think this is going to be limited to only people that work just in Sister Bay. People who work in the some slightly surrounding area will also have an interest in this housing. So those were the offsetting factors that I took to assess that it's fair to say, since the data we have as individuals, it's fair to say that a roughly similar amount of households, that would equate to a roughly similar amount of households. But I can spell that all out if that's desired.
I think that's important, especially when you have it in table 1 on this, because unfortunately, most people aren't gonna make it to the end of this. They're
Yep.
gonna see table 1, they're gonna look at that, and they're gonna grab numbers from there.
Sure.
Is there a reason that you did not talk to Marissa Downs, who did the most recent development out on Highway 57? It's HUD housing, I understand. It's also income-based, but there are also a variety of people there paying market rate. Why did you not talk to her?
I can jump in, Tom. We
Yep.
did talk to her.
Oh,
It's not in the report, but we did have a
Thank you.
discussion with her.
okay.
The main takeaway we got from her was that demand was very high, the income limits precluded some people, and she would have made a bunch more one-bedroom apartments, because there's a lot of single unit demand out there.
Well, I think in your study, it talked about, or maybe it was,
The chart maybe?
it was somewhere on how many single households there were, and it was rather large.
Yes, people generally don't want to live in a communal roommate situation, which she had not accounted for in her development, but would if she did any other one up here.
Well, she has more property to develop, so. Okay, any other questions for Tom?
I have another comment on the trying to see what table this is, but it talks about the people who work in Sister Bay and live elsewhere and people who live in Sister Bay and work elsewhere. I really wish there was more granular information than that, because that's very broad. As if you could live in Liberty Grove and work in Sister Bay. And, you know, like myself, I live in Sister Bay, but I work in Bailey's Harbor. And I think that skews some of this data, because we're not seeing how far they're going. And I don't know that it paints the most accurate picture. I think it's a little too binary on its breakdown.
What would be helpful?
I mean, to have a radius, I mean, I understand there's a challenge on that to set a radius, but somewhere between, you know, if you're with 10 or 15 miles, you're probably not gonna be looking at relocating. You're, and if it's beyond that, or at least the county level, to say, I live in
Yeah.
Brown County and I work in Sister Bay, that would be a pretty decent breakdown. The more granular, the better. At some point, it's just not possible.
Yeah, it is. The data is available to quantify what counties people are coming from, and even what cities people are coming from. So those are two measures that we could do. I'm not sure that I agree with you that if they're coming from farther away, they're less likely to want to move to Sister Bay. I
That's
think,
not what I said. No, I said
Okay,
if they were within 10 or 15 miles, they'd be less likely to want to move than if
Oh, I
they're
see.
out of the area.
I see. Yeah,
See,
and
I don't know
I'm
if
not
you-
sure, I agree with that either. they
A lot
may
of those people
know the
could-
sister, yeah, so, but we can certainly break it down, and then you can have that discussion.
Anything else? Good, thank you, Tom. Skylar?
Sure, sure, thank you much.
That's,
Item number 7, water quality sign review.
Okay, so everybody has read the packet. I did put some new sign, or I'm sorry, some additional information on your table. These were some different sign designs that the county can offer that are smaller than the ones they had originally proposed. And they would still have the warning light, which is why this came here. So the Parks Committee looked at it, but there were some questions, you know, did it even meet sign code? And that's where the decision was, well, let's send it to planning and see what they say.
Before we get farther than that, parks. In our packet for parks, it talked about how many beach closings we have had over a period of years. And last year, I think we had maybe one day, it's not in our packet for this commission to see. But parks understood, having a sign, being informative for the health and safety and the welfare of whoever is at the beach and going into the water. But Sister Bay is pretty clean and rarely closed. So there was a lot of leaning towards not having a sign. And then I think as we talked further, they just felt it was probably best to come here to see how Plan Commission would view it, and then they'll talk about it again based on our conversation. Thank you.
Ken from the county is here. Ken, do you want to talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, I guess I was, I'm trying to reserve comment. I guess I'd like to focus on the sign. I guess. Again, if you go back in time in history where this all started, there was an outbreak at one of the beaches that had over 60 people got sick from the outbreak. So the county has since then probably over 20 years been doing beach testing. And I think we're one of the leaders in the state in what our program does. And I think last year we got to 28 beaches. So it's really it's a tool not only to educate our public, but also the visitors that come to our county. And that's why from our public health standpoint, we think it's such an important program. And I do understand your opinion that it only closed once and it's very rare, but that's not draw anything in terms of what can happen on summer events or maybe people sick or ill and what harm it can cause the families that are visiting the area. So while I understand some of that sentiment, I guess I strongly disagree of why we've been doing and investing this as a county. And while we're up now to over 28 beaches in our testing, because we think it's a significant aspect to what we're doing and providing not only our residents, but the tourists that come to our county that are using our assets. And as you're aware, groundwater is probably one of our most significant issues that we're addressing, not only groundwater, but surface water. And those directly impact our beaches. So from a public health standpoint, I was speaking upon, again, we're the county advocating to work with all of our partners to make this as a safe environment as possible. Now, that being said, what we're trying to do is work with all of our partner communities to put together a program, because again, we've increased from at one time, probably 8 beaches. Now, the last year, we're testing over 28 beaches with our program, and that's through UW Oshkosh and a series of interns. And what we're trying to do is make our communications as effective and also efficient as possible. So in discussion with the Park Commission, they brought up concerns about the size of the signs, and we appreciated that. We actually went back to the vendor. The vendor said they've actually gave some samples of where those signs can be cut in half. So again, I guess all we're trying to do is build a partnership with the community. It's not, we're not trying to be the big bad brother coming in. Again, we're trying to work with all of our communities to make a safe environment from a public health standpoint. And that's why we're asking this to be a partner on this project. We have metal signs now that have been existed at the beach. Actually, the metal signs, when you put up the warnings, would actually be larger than these signs. Again, the reason why we're trying to go to this technology is that it allows us to immediately put that notification up at the beach and also take that notification down as soon as we get those results. All the testing is done at Crossroads, And when those are done, once we have that, with this technology, we can immediately either take down or put up that warning. So again, it's just a matter of trying to maximize our efficiency, maximize our communication, and also maximize the times for our interns, which you experience this as well. We're having a hard time getting those volunteers, and not volunteers, they're students that are working for us, but we're having a hard time even getting those individuals to be part of that program. So anything that we can do to maintain being able to test our beaches, but also make it efficient for us to provide that service. I guess we're trying to build that partnership. So again, we're trying to be as positive and a partner more than anything. So we're not trying to say thou shall do this, and that's why we're reaching out. We're going to communities, and we put out the 5 last year as a pilot. It was very successful. We had a lot of positive feedback. We made some modifications in terms of the bases, and we're gonna try to go solar. We're trying to put in grants for the signs this year. But again, we're just trying to grow the program. I think we're gonna probably put in a grant for 5 more, and that's why we're asking to see if Sister Bay. We did have calls for why Sister Bay didn't have it. I'm not saying one way or another, but there were questions on that. We had calls also from Ephraim and Fish Creek, so we're with both those communities as well, because again, these are some of the more popular beaches, so. I don't know if there's any questions, but we can go from there.
One of the other concerns that we talked about at Parks was with the larger sign on the 2 posts is that it was mentioned that the sign comes down in the winter. And so now you would have 2 posts. Just anybody could fall into them, hurt themselves on them, whatever. I think the smaller sign is much more appealing. And if we would like to work with the county and move forward with this, that maybe having it hung on the village hall would be an appropriate place.
If I could just clarify too, that we're definitely willing to work with you on the building if you prefer that, but if we do a base, the base is actually, they're not permanent posts. So if you look at, it's not in this packet, if I could pass this around, if you wanted to. We actually designed a system, so it actually just comes in a concrete base. It's a small one. You can put plantings there to make it more attractive, or you can put mulch over it. But what the county is proposing to do with the partnering communities is, in essence, we would drop it off at the start of the season. And we'd pick it up at the end of the season, and we'd store it, and we just bring it back out the next
So
year.
there's no post at all in the winter time.
That was not relayed to us at our last.
It was, yeah,
Parks
it was
meeting.
in the packet for that, but I apologize if it wasn't clear, but that was our intent when we redesigned it. So we can do something similar with the smaller sign. But again, also if the preference is to have that on a building, we're willing to work with that as well, so.
Is it not as effective being on the building?
It can be, it's just a matter of where you want the visibility to it, so I don't know which building, at the village hall, I think that's very visible there, so I think that could work.
Except that beach isn't there.
The beach isn't there, I know at the current location is
Yeah.
by the pavilion, so you could place a sign there and then take it down, or you could put by. I guess more than anything, as long as we can just educate people, that's then take a glance, and that's where they know it is, it's a matter of training individuals where it is, so.
Or it could go along the beach where all those grasses are growing, just maybe discreetly put it in between all.
There's nothing discreet about that.
It's smaller than these
It
other.
is much smaller.
Again, and
But then we would also, there's no electrical there, and then if you wanted to do solar, then it makes it that much taller.
What problem are we really trying to solve with this? I mean, technology is cool, but this seems like a lot for really not solving the problem. I mean, like, we're gonna have maybe an hour sooner on notice out there?
Hi, may I interject as the parks manager who's been essentially the project manager for this beach sign project?
Sir,
Yes, some of the issues that it does resolve is it reduces notification time between 24 to 48 hours, which is, pretty massive impact. So if there was an E. coli infection, people are going to be notified 1 to 2 days sooner than they normally would. Last year, there was 2 beach closings and 4 advisories at Sister Bay itself. Putting the sign in would reduce that. I understand, though, it is against your your covenants, in your ordinances to have a stop and go light. So that's why I worked with Ken to help reduce the signage here. But something like this, would make it just a little bit more, faster and safer for the entire community.
You're saying 1 to 2 days sooner?
Well, what I had, and that was mentioned at Parks also, and I said, well, couldn't a phone call be made to Sister Bay as soon as the test results
Yeah,
came back in an adverse way? And couldn't one of our staff go
Uh-huh.
hang up the sign on the current post that's
Yeah.
there? Didn't really get I think they said that we could do, that they'd be willing to do that. So it could be not as fast, but I would say, within an hour of the test results.
yeah, I mean, it doesn't need it. I don't think that there's a choice between safety and having the sign. I think that we can not have the sign and still have safety. I don't think it's going to compromise safety. I also have got some strong feelings on it because I will always remember my first sole dissenting vote on plan commission. It had to do with internally illuminated signs. And I really don't think that Sister Bay should go down that path of having internally illuminated signs. I still think that almost 15 years later, because I think we lose some of the character of our community. And again, I hear what you're saying is versus you're saying the county would come up here and put up the sign. Is that what that 24 to 48 hours was?
It's actually interns from the UW Oshkosh system that are the ones that do the sampling and turn over the placards.
So then if we could get that converted to say a phone call, then it would be our responsibility to get that out there for the times it does happen. Is that something the county would do? I mean, you guys pick up the phone to call us.
I think.
You know,
I guess what I'm trying to do is avoid the number of hands that are involved because we've done multiple times and multiple iterations of this where we've had those types of arrangements and they did not sustain themselves. Again, the same issues that you guys have are the ones that we're having, but now I have an intern trying to call a park person here, which you're not gonna have your parks people working, your full-time people working, so now you're looking at interns that are probably working on weekends that are potentially on call, so now I have 2 chains down just to do a notification, and at the end of the day, we have to get that posted from a public health standard. So can it be done? Yes, but I can tell you it has been done in the past, and we've gone back all the way full circle on this kind of stuff, just because of the resources involved in making it happen, so. We can have, I mean, if you say no, we'll definitely try to work with you in another way. I mean, I'm just, again, we're trying to employ ways to make ourselves more efficient, so.
Denise, what's the protocol right now? When the beach is closed, what kind of sign goes up? Is there?
I have never
it get
seen
roped
the
off?
sign that is put up. So I can't tell you.
It's a large.
There's a sign that goes down by the swimming pier, I
Right
believe.
by the beach, there's a flag,
Right by
hanging
here.
placard.
I don't know what the dimensions are because I've never seen it.
It's
So
about
we-
it's about the size of the
The
sign.
main objection here is that it's illuminated and it's not attractive.
Yeah, and it doesn't meet our code.
Does anybody on the planning commission think that this isn't so bad? I mean, I'm a swimmer and I want to be notified ASAP. We're having so many more people swim down there. Sister Creek is getting bigger every year, more tourists. I think it's a great way to communicate some safe information. A small sign doesn't bother my eye at all. I understand it's not in our code. But there's a lot of other beaches in Door County and statewide that are using this system. Seems very efficient. And I do think we should put the safety of our swimmers first.
So how do we exempt ourselves from the sign code? Or exempt the county? It's their sign.
Yeah, I'd have to look at how we can do it in there. If I can just add something about the village, them calling the village employee, and it's the village's responsibility to hang the sign. I had a little concern about that from a liability standpoint. What if our employee doesn't get up? What if they don't hang it up right, it falls down? Is the village then liable if somebody gets sick from that water? Whereas if you leave it up to the county, it's the county's liability. So that's just something that concerns me on the village having to take that responsibility. Ken, because
Wouldn't our, what is it, parks?
Recreational
Yes,
indemnification.
thank you. Wouldn't,
recreational immunity is if you're walking along a trail and somebody gets hurt, you're protected because they're doing a recreation activity. Negligence, there's a water quality alert and we fail to post it, is a negligent behavior. That's not something that's not something that would cover you with recreational immunity.
so what happened before all of this? People would, there's a sign that says swim at your own risk.
Yeah.
We are surrounded by the Great Lakes.
But see, I think you were protected that way because you have the swim at your own risk sign, right?
It's still there.
So you're telling them,
Still there.
you're telling them you're swim at your own risk. We're not taking any responsibility for that. What I'm saying is, if the decision is that the village is the one who gets the call and then goes hang the sign, I do have a concern about that. Because we're taking on that liability. And has there been any models out there that don't resemble the traffic lights, shape?
Now with the enabling. Again, this was one of the systems as I mentioned before, we implemented last year. We just did a few signs as a pilot. And again, so based off your feedback, we went back to the vendor to see if there was a smaller version, and that's what they provided us in terms of their ability to do that. So that's the only system that we know of that is, I guess, enabled. And again, the way the system works, it's there's a cellular signal that's within it. I'm not sure, you might know better in the technology, but there's a special way that's enabled, that it's set up to work within the bluffs that we have throughout the county. We got that worked out last year with several of the sites. But that's how they're actually enabled to be updated so quickly.
Now, what you handed out tonight, the wording is different than what's in our packet. What's in our packet says red, beach water closed, which makes no sense at all. It should be beach closed. Yellow, beach water advisory, green, no advisory. Then this one says red is high hazard, yellow is medium hazard, green is low hazard. Which wording is it?
The handout I did for you are from other communities, and some of those communities actually use it for riptide, so I'm not sure the exact wording of those signs.
Okay.
What he's saying is that he would take our signs and the wording that we established through public health and UV Oshkosh and just make that smaller to fit into those signs. So we pretty much go with the signs that we have, so they're consistent throughout the county, but we just downsize it.
Can you get rid of the green light? And then, do we need the green light to be on, or could we just have the yellow and the red?
We could ask the vendor in that, but this from a consistency standpoint, without. There's an educational aspect to that. I can have the, Dr. Kleinheitz explain, but it's a matter of not seeing that it's also safe as part of the communication, for having to be safe. So maybe I could ask, we did ask in terms of this, in fact, this going red, and they thought that was not bad because they actually have to do the advisory of the yellow level. That's part of the requirements that they have from the state. So, but I can check on the green, but I just know that as part of the thing we had discussions on before, and I don't too, you know that, but.
I mean, there's also anything mechanical is going to break or malfunction at some point in time. And there's even a quantifier on the sign that is currently used in the county. Absence of lights does not indicate safe water quality. And plus, I think you should contact your vendor and tell them to change the standard on beach water closed. That's just.
And may I, may I say a few things too?
Yes.
I don't know how to get around the whole, the traffic light system and the ordinance. A few suggestions, that could, make it more amenable is if, you mount this onto the wall near where the restrooms are at. And talking with the vendor, they've been through some of the trials. They worked with a couple of PhD professors, and they said that when there are no lights, it makes more of a concern saying, well, is the sign malfunctioning? But if one of the 3 lights is operating, then you're convinced that the sign is operational, and it gives you some sense of reliability that it is functioning at that standpoint. And when it comes to verbiage, the vendor is also amenable to working with you as to putting in verbiage that's suitable, that wouldn't ward off your beachgoers. And it would still allow for the beach to be open technically, but it advises you to stay out of the water. So if you're walking on dry sand, that's not the issue as much as when you're in the water, the beach waters itself are what's contaminated, whereas the sand itself isn't necessarily contaminated. So keeping the beach open could be feasible. It's just the water itself are what's contaminated.
Where are we, folks? I just. I'm reluctantly okay with the smaller sign if it was on the village hall. But somebody has to tell me how we allow the county to violate our sign ordinance.
Without having somebody else be able to do the same thing.
Correct. We have a situation right now that's,
Do we need to give the administrator some time to come up with some options on that and we can revisit it?
You mean find a way or see what's in the code to allow them, for example, the county from the sign code?
I mean, I think we'd have to do a text amendment for the health, safety and welfare for our community. I'm sure that there's wording, but we'd have to amend the sign code, allow this of a certain size to be internally lit. Because everything else in the code talks about the health, safety and welfare of our community. So I think.
Can you get us the technical specs on it? I mean, I'd sure like to cap the lumens and all that. If we're gonna have to have this, let's find out how many lumens you're putting out.
We might get it done in a year, Ken.
We're with you. Again, we're not.
We
trying-
don't really
not-
mean to be.
No, and it's not, please, we're in this together as a community, and all we're trying to do is, again, we're just trying to maximize resources, so if it takes us a while to get there, we work about it, and if it ultimately doesn't work, I understand as well. I mean, we're just trying to maximize our resources as you are, so if we can build a partnership, fantastic. And again, if it doesn't, I'm not gonna say we're not gonna work at anything else, we work on this stuff all the time, so
Okay.
that's our goal.
What's one last question? Who pays for it?
So what we did with all of our other ones, we're actually putting together a community foundation grant right now, for the next set of signs we're trying to obtain. And what we promised with the communities is that the county would own the signs. So we would maintain them in that sense. The only thing we're asking for the partnership with the community is to help them pay for the yearly maintenance, which is approximately $300 a year for the cellular service. Be that way.
And then our Parks Department would be responsible for dropping it off shortly before Memorial Day and picking it up shortly after Labor Day, which would be the entire testing season for the year. And as for the lumens, I don't know what the lumens are, but the lights are more directed straight on and they're visible. However, the lights would be turned off in the evening. So this would only be during reasonable beach open hours, whether that time's 7 a.m. till 6 p.m., somewhere in that range. And we can make that work with Sister Bay.
Very helpful to know. Thank you.
That does make me feel a bit better, but still, if you can just get the vendor to give us a ballpark on the lumens, like. I'm gonna guess it's probably gonna be, maybe 600 lumens or something like that, but so we know, so we can cap it.
But you know,
Yeah,
what's
okay.
funny? What I find funny is that if it's going to be dropped off Memorial Day, before Memorial Day and picked up Labor Day, people are swimming in there all kinds of different times before and after that.
Yeah,
So there's no,
Swim at your own risk.
I mean, as
And
far
We better find out this.
I could only
as far as
assume,
liability, aren't we better off not testing if our goal is to really avoid liability? Because if we don't test, we don't know, therefore we can't. If we want to go down that path of trying to limit liability, Julie.
Well, the county,
I wanna
if I-
test
if
it.
I understand correctly, the county has a responsibility to test the beaches, don't
Yeah.
they? A legal responsibility. So,
and that is the season when E. coli apparently is more aggressive and at its peak, whereas in the cooler months, apparently it's not from what I understand. But I'm not the expert. I'm just the parks manager for the county, so.
okay, your information is helpful though, thank you. Okay, we'll get some stuff
Thank you for the time, I
from
appreciate
you
it.
guys
Thank you.
and we'll work on some kind of text amendment and
Yeah, I'll work with
try to
you.
keep moving forward.
Yeah, I'll work on the lumens.
Okay.
Thank you guys, I appreciate it. Thank you for the time.
Okay, item number 7, site plan review, change of use, coffee shop in the Ecology Sports Building.
so this is for Mr. Kursvet. I'm sorry, let me back up a little bit. You have a copy in here, but he had received a permit from us earlier, a couple years ago, for a coffee shop. And he got his building inspection permits, his building safety permits, he's been working on it. And then everybody realized his permit had expired and he had to stop. So basically what he's trying to do is just renew it so he can finish the project. Unfortunately, that's not the way code is written. It's not that easy. He almost has to start over. So what I've done here is I've shared the information. Nothing has really changed. There is an outside patio area or outside patio area we weren't aware of that would have.
We were aware,
The file didn't have that in there.
we all
So-
knew that there
Yeah.
was a patio there.
Okay, cause the file didn't show anything about evening wine bar and beer garden. We didn't get that until we got that from, the building inspector, but that's okay. The point is, he's got the room, he's got the parking. We almost felt bad asking him to go through all of this, but it is an expired permit, so. This is just basically saying, do we wanna renew this, or do we want him to? Are we gonna look at the landscaping and the lighting and the detail that we do on some of these other cases? Nothing has changed as far as the outside of the building, what it looks like. And then are we gonna require development agreement? You did not last time. And to be honest with you, I think to be fair, since we did not, we should not be requiring it this time.
I think that we can renew it, is my opinion. I do have a couple of questions, though. On page 101, and it's stamped received December 15th, 2023, so a little over a month ago. And it's the scaled drawing of the building. But if you go to page 105, it's totally different. Along with page 106, so there's 3 different drawings. And I don't know why they're all in our packet.
Sure. So the one that is dated December 15th, 2023, I think you said it's page 101.
Yes,
Is what Mr. Kursavit submitted this year. Okay, he submitted that in December when he was told that the permit was not valid anymore.
okay.
Then when you move on.
So Joelle, so since the last permit, you've decided to change the interior around a little bit, hence the new drawing.
Yeah, you have to make some adjustment. future layout, but the size stays the same, we didn't really make a building.
Yeah, okay, all right. So that is what we should go by. Okay,
Yeah, and then that other one you had said, Denise, on page 105.
5 and 6.
5 is from the building inspector. What his file had. And I believe, I think 106 was something the building inspector had as well.
Okay. And just a couple of comments I wanted to make on, your staff report.
Yeah.
Although I do not believe parking is an issue, I do think the commission needs to consider limiting the tables and chairs, not allowing live music, although Joel did not apply to be an outdoor entertainment facility. I don't think that we need to address any kind of outdoor amplified music at this time, because the only way to have that is through an outdoor entertainment facility, right?
Right, I just wanted it, on the permit to make it very clear that this is not an outdoor entertainment facility, this is a coffee shop with evening hours. A lot of times people, you get the crowds out there and pretty soon they start adding music, just so he understood, this hasn't been approved that way. If he'd want to, he'd come back.
Okay,
And then limiting the sizes just because we'd want to limit it to what he told us it's gonna be. Because so many times people start adding more chairs and chairs and chairs, and then you have bigger issues. So it's saying the permit would authorize what he applied for.
which is what?
It was I have to look back in here, it was the 5 tables with chairs on the 12 by 24 patio.
And those 5 tables are 4-person tables, 4 chairs per table.
Yeah, it was about mostly the one facility before inside or outside, I mean, like. In the summer, we want to put more table outside and less table inside, but what I would say would matter for the parking is the number of people sitting, whether
Right.
it's inside or outside.
Okay, good point. So you would like, your ask is for 40 patrons, whether it's inside or outside?
Yes.
40
Okay.
total.
Okay,
And the question also, like, due to the parking, what would be, I think, the parking is exceeding the seating right now. And I was wondering, you know, like it's totally the area, like what about 45 sitting? So what would be the limit, the place would accommodate, is there a limit, you know, what that?
well, we would have to, first of all, because it would be shared parking between, Ecology and the coffee shop. So we would need to know the gross area, the square footage of your gross retail area. It does not include any storage or the bathrooms. It would only be where you have product displayed, that square footage. We would then apply, the parking, to that square footage. See how much you have, which then could dictate how much you have extra. We would be able to backdoor that and come up with what would be the max that you could have.
It's a pretty big parking lot out there.
That's what I'm saying, that I think, I know I'm limited to 40, but based on what's existing today, I mean, like, with the staff rarely, unless there is a fourth class or something. I mean, there is really more than 10 of
Most people park on the
just wanted to
street.
point that out, that
you know. So, I think if we're going to come up with a determination, especially if we are not going to, request a development agreement because we didn't last time, that if we postpone this for a month, will that curtail you at all on moving forward?
No, actually, I like to move forward even tonight. It was just a question. I'm satisfied with the solution you bring tonight. It was just something, and just in case, you know, I didn't get. in trouble.
And we can limit it to 40 patrons inside and out.
Yeah.
And if at some point in time you want to expand that, you just come back and we would just
Yeah.
need all those calculations at the time.
We just have to make sure we don't compound parking problems down there. And we have had issues, there's one business in particular that they're always having parking issues, not downtown, but in another area. So we do limit the number of tables and try to hold people to that. But then, if, like Denise said, if you want to expand that, you just come back and we review it again. Is there enough parking? Are there any issues?
Well,
We look at it that way.
Move to this location to address the parking situation.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, you didn't have a whole lot of parking at the old place.
Right. We initially didn't have enough parking, so the reason we moved. And I think, when you know the situation in today, I think we providing parking. And some business don't.
Correct.
And I know there is, grandfathers saying, I understand that, but that's, that's fine. But I do understand we have to do with.
Does anybody else have other questions?
The only one I have for Mr. Kursbit is, you know, a lot of times on patios, they'll put the string lights and the outdoor lights. Were you planning on having anything like that?
Anything I can do to make the place look better, yes, I'm doing.
Okay,
But I mean, is there a restriction to, any?
well, we do regulate lighting, and for other businesses, we have regulated their string lighting. I figured you'd probably want that out there, so I had just said that, you know, it should carry the same condition that we put on all the other businesses that have string lighting. So it would just be that it's limited to no more than 40 lumens per bulb. That's what we've done with other places, so that was the other condition that was recommended. To protect the night sky, yeah.
Do you want a motion?
Would you like to read it, Janelle?
Sure. Okay, that the plan commission grants Joel Kursabet's request for authorization to change the use of the garage on the Ecology Sports Property Tool Coffee Shop. And to the end, Schmelzer shall see that a related zoning permit is issued in as timely a fashion as possible. The following conditions shall be clearly delineated on that permit. Seating for no more than 40 patrons inside and outside the coffee shop will be allowed. No live music will be allowed.
Nope, nope,
Take that
take
out.
that out.
Okay, and, string, also known as rope lights, are permitted provided the lights do not emit more than 40 lumen, or, no.
40
lumens.
Hold on the 40 lumens. I think that might be a little low. I think that other places we've had it like 100 or 200 on there, because I'm looking at it, I'm thinking like a 2-watt LED, which could go well above 40 lumens. I think that we probably shouldn't say 100 lumens on there.
Well, this is what we had on Peach Barn and Time Restaurant.
I could have swore the last time we talked about string lighting, those are like 2 years ago. Talked to,
They were both within, Peach Barn was last January, maybe,
because I
and Time
think,
was this past summer.
I guess I think the 40 lumens, if you're talking about a 1-watt bulb for an LED bulb.
Yeah, what I did was I just cut and paste the exact same language we had on the other two development agreements, which was string, aka rope lights, are permitted provided the string does not emit more than 40 lumens per bulb. Bulb shall be warm white. All exterior lighting shall use warm white lights, and all lights shall be cast downward. All building lighting shall be dimmable and not exceed 3,000 K.
So I think,
Path lighting is low. That's what we put on.
I'm not willing to change that until I see it, because we've
Okay.
also done it for 2 other
okay,
Yeah,
businesses.
it's been done
Be
before.
consistent. I have a question, Janelle, on that motion.
Mhm.
It says no outdoor music.
No, I had her take it out.
That's gone.
He'll get with
He'll
his,
come back to us if he wants to
Correct.
do outdoor music at another time.
right, the
Yeah.
letter that issues the permit will explain he's not approved as an outdoor entertainment facility. If he wants to do it in the future, he has to come back and.
Sure, okay.
And I think you should add warm white
Okay.
to
Yeah,
the
but
rope
that-
lights.
Okay, so I've got string, aka rope lights are permitted, provided the lights do not emit more than 40 lumens per bulb. And bulbs shall be warm white. All exterior lighting shall utilize warm white lights, and all light shall be cast downward.
And not exceed 3,000 K.
Okay.
Somebody care to make that motion?
I so move.
Motion by Champeau,
Second,
second by Harp. All those in favor respond with an aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
One more question.
Carried, yes.
I'm not familiar with, I don't intend to become a containment facility, but if I, what's the condition of like, we want to do an event and we want to have like, maybe what is the procedure?
So if you're only doing an event once in a great while, the code has some special provisions for that. But if you wanna be an outdoor entertainment facility where it's on a continual routine basis,
Even if it's once a week.
No, yeah, I'm thinking more like, I don't know. Let's say 3 times a year, what the condition?
that's a really good number, because I think that the code says if it's 3 or less, you don't need those special permits, and I think if it's more than that, you do. But Mr. Kurspet, I'll look it up and I'll put that in the letter for you, okay, just so it's very clear so you understand.
Yeah, I just don't want to try to do that sometime, especially like this guy.
Sure, sure. I'll send you some information on that, just so you don't get in trouble or anything.
Thank you so much.
Great, thank you. Okay, 7C, short-term rental request, exceed the allowable number of rooms. Aaron and John Wilson, 10547 Fieldcrest Road.
Okay, so, you have received the staff report and the letter from the Wilsons. And Erin is here, so she can.
Video there.
So she can answer any questions you have. And I can certainly answer any of them too. Just for those of you that don't know, that on Fieldcrest, there's been some stringing new homes, around that Glen Lane entrance
All Keith
area.
Garrett's developments.
Right. Mhm.
All those
So,
homes have turned into STRs.
not all of them, this
No.
is one of them.
Okay.
So, I think 2 so far, maybe.
Okay.
So Erin, I don't know, do you wanna?
Yeah, so, I'm gonna sneak over here so I can see everybody. Thanks for, letting me address the commission here. We bought the property after it had been approved, to build as a 5-bedroom. We anticipated that it would have been done before the ordinance, transitioned, this summer. And so it is a 5-bedroom, we're tax assessed as a 5-bedroom. Our DATCP license through the state is a 5-bedroom. It just is a 5-bedroom home. And we would like to offer it, in terms of just transparency, so people, when we aren't there and we are renting it, so people know, that there is more space for people to spread out. So my points are twofold. The first is, it has always been designed as a bedroom. We aren't taking a closet and turning it into any kind of bedroom. And we're also not asking for an increase in the number of people that we'd be allowed to host. Right now, our permit is for 4 bedrooms and 12 people. And we're simply asking for being able to just be transparent, when people inquire, to let them know that it is a 5-bedroom home, so they could expect the layout. You know, we usually have families that rent, so grandma and grandpa don't necessarily want to have grandkids sleeping in the room or what have you for our number of 12, so it would need to be 3 people per floor. We'd like people to know that they can stretch out a little bit more, but maintain our 12-person permit. We think that that's very fair, and more than happy to oblige with all the rest of the regulations, because we do think those are helpful for the community and such. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So technically, 5 bedrooms, your home could accommodate 15 guests.
Yeah.
How do we know that it's not going to be rented out to 15 guests all summer long?
So, I don't know if the way that you could write, if there is an amendment and a concurrence on, allowing it to be advertised as a 5-bedroom and saying that it needs to be 12 people. On all of our advertising to date, we say we can accommodate 12 people and we have 4 bedrooms. So on Airbnb and VRBO and any documentation that we have, it's all says 4 bedrooms. We are doing this because we don't want to break the rules, and we're doing this because we don't want to hold, we're not trying to, maximize and have a huge number of people in our house. with the parking restrictions, we have 4 cars that are allotted. We don't even want to deal with more than 12 people, because we don't want to have to think about car arrangements and that type of thing. We're very clear on how people can park. We have a map, and that type of thing, so there are no violations there. We have a video camera that shoots out to our driveway so that we can make sure that no one's parking in any kind of violation. So we're doing this not because we want to be in any kind of violation, but in fact, we just want to adhere to the guidelines and truly just be transparent to anybody that is looking to say that there's 5 bedrooms so that they know that they can spread out a little bit, or if there's a baby, the baby can have their own room if they go to bed earlier, that type of thing.
Erin, would you be willing to voluntarily do a deed restriction saying that the property could never have more than 12 people on it? If for a short-term rental, when being rented.
We are happy with 12 people, and if that's the process that would need to make sure that we don't have 12 people, that seems very reasonable to us. We don't plan to have, we don't want to rent to more than 12 people. We're not trying to cram people into the house.
That's a great idea, but we have no way to police it, Julie.
Yeah.
And when our code says that you are allowed 3 people per bedroom, they are entitled, if this was granted, to 15 people.
That's right.
There are 10 beds there. I went on to, Destination Door County and, looked at the unit, the prices, the pictures. And, also had some, it says that there's free parking on the property up to 4 cars, but does that imply that, okay, anything over 4 cars, there's no free parking on property, so now people are parking on the street? It doesn't say that there's a maximum of 4 cars allowed at any one time. I think we have some neighbors in the audience. I do not know if they would like to address the Plan Commission in any way, or they are just here to listen.
Can I bring something up?
Yeah.
I'll say something.
Okay, Tom.
Here comes a neighbor.
Well, that house next to it, which was the first house, is a short-term rental, and that was built with 6 bedrooms. The lots are all the same. I mean, the building lot is the same. So that was built with 6 bedrooms, and now this graduates to 5 bedrooms. The next 2 are supposed to be short-term rentals too, as far as the information the neighbors have. So it'll be 4 units short-term rental, and how many more bedrooms? The thing I can see is the car situation. You can have a camera there, 4 cars, and you can have all the intentions of the world, but when they come, you know, when people come, your renters are coming, they're coming for vacation. They're not coming to be tied in by rules. And if all 4 units on the future, yesterday they started taking down the trees for the 50th, but that's a way for you to driveway, but you 4 are all together. And it's very tight right there right now. You have minimal front yards and your driveways are very short. So,
Do we even know if Tom is mentioning that they have a short driveway, if it even meets the 9 by 20?
Yeah, I would have, when I review their applications, I look at the actual dimensions on the driveway to see what they can actually fit in the driveway. So
From whose measurements?
mine,
Okay,
well scaled from the drawings. And in these in this particular section of roads, some of the driveways were wider than they were supposed to be, and I actually had the builder go and cut them back and reduce the size of them. So I know they're all accurate on their dimensions.
Okay, I would like to bring something up. There's a property next to them called the Cherry Cabana. And that was one of the houses all built at the same time. They advertise 4 bedrooms, sleeps 12. But when you look at their information, Bedroom 1 has a king bed, bedroom 2 has a queen bed, bedroom 3 has a queen bed, bedroom 4 has a queen bed. So that's 8, because then they have what they call the office. And there's 2 queen beds. So that's how they can sleep 12 by making it's a 5-bedroom. They're just calling it an office. So I already see these new rentals coming up with their creative ways around all the rules. And you guys know how we're impacted, how Tom is impacted, and it's just a little frustrating. It's like you said, pretty minimal rules for what they have to go by, and now they want things changed. So, I mean, I don't appreciate this one at all, because they just got real creative and called it an office. We don't have a 5-bedroom, we have 4 bedrooms and an office.
That's a violation I'll have to follow up on.
I printed it out.
I guess I just wanna be clear that we're not the Cherry Cabana and we haven't.
I
advertised
understand,
it anymore.
and your home is beautiful, because I looked at it too.
Mhm, thank you.
It's beautiful, and I appreciate what you're doing, your rules are much stricter than a lot of them are.
Yes, it's about an 8-page packet, and we make people sign an agreement with all of the rules before they go there, or they know they can be evicted. We really are trying to follow all the rules, and I know that there are issues with short-term rentals, and we're gonna be retiring up here in, we hope, a shorter number of years, and we'll be neighbors, but that's why we're doing the short-term rental when we're not there. We're absolutely trying to follow all the rules. Short-term rentals are allowed. I know they're, for some people, not popular or not liked, but we're simply just trying to follow the rules with them. And
You did hear earlier about how the STRs have impacted our housing stock and how they've also increased the rents in our apartments.
I saw some of the figures that he was saying. It looked like some of the amount of rental properties, I think it was slide 12, had gone down quite a bit. I don't know what statistically significant changes were
No, that
documented
rent
there.
has all gone up.
Mhm.
There's, we
Of
have,
property rentals, I mean, short-term rentals. I guess if I can sort of redirect, I'm not here I'm simply here just to ask about this amendment. I understand that there's very hard feelings about short-term rentals, and I'm sorry that my request has brought them up, or even in the context of the neighborhood. We're not asking for more people. We were just asking for to be able to say that it is a 5-bedroom house. If it feels as if, I understand that there's concerns about us lying about the rules. And I personally wouldn't do that, but, we've seen that it seems to us that there are 5-bedroom rentals in Sister Bay. There's something called Air DNA that we've been able to go on, and it looks like, I believe it's since 2021, there's maybe it's 2022, there's 21 over 5+ bedroom rentals in Sister Bay. So I am just questioning how that might have been, how some people can have 5-bedroom. Again, we haven't changed a closet. It was built as a 5-bedroom, we're tax assessed as a 5-bedroom, it's a 5-bedroom, and we're not asking for more people in it. That's just a question I have too, that there are 5+ bedroom rentals in Sister Bay, so I'm curious.
I can answer that.
Sure, yeah.
So some of those, most of them were permitted in the last permitting cycle. When they go to get their new license as of July 1st, they're gonna be limited to their rooms, to the 4.
So every rental in Sister Bay will be 4-bedroom.
All of them will be limited to the number that was legally on the file, but not more than 4 bedrooms. And there's only one that I can think of that might be allowed more, and I have to look at how it was actually permitted many, many years ago. It's a old one. It was like a multi-unit structure, so that one might be the exception. But yeah, when they all come in for their new license as of July 1st, there should not be any 5-bedroom rentals anymore in Sister Bay.
We also have a density problem on that street in that whole neighborhood, Fieldcrest and South Island Road and Cherry Court and all of that. There are so many short-term rentals in that neighborhood. Cars, even if they park in the driveway, they spill over into the road and on the lawns. It's a real density problem, and I think as a planning commission, we need to stick to our guns and make it, follow the rules and not expand things.
When we set up those rules on the 4 bedrooms and trying to minimize, the homes that can accommodate 20, 25,
Yeah, 22, 15.
et cetera. And we knew that there were a lot of homes out there that had more than four bedrooms, and we consciously made that decision. That this is what we thought was fair. Because beyond this, and I even think beyond a 3-bedroom home, it's not being utilized as a home anymore. This is not, no matter what the state legislature says, this is not a single family unit, because people that are there are using it differently. Yes, Nate.
I think that we need to give Erin credit for coming here and being honest with us. I do think that she's actually saying, we want to use this as a bedroom. She could have just tried to do the other, just put it as an office. So I do think that we should give her that credit. The question I would have is, what circumstances do we want to say okay to beyond 4 bedrooms? Is there a circumstance we want to? What criteria would we have to say, yeah, we think it's okay to do more than 4? But I'm hard pressed to think how we would want to do that, but
I think I might be inclined, depending upon the zoning district, the density of the neighborhood. If somebody wanted to do that in countryside where you have to have a 10-acre lot, I might look at that differently than something on a very busy road that has traffic issues, pedestrian issues, all this additional building going on. I think that,
I ask because I genuinely
Yeah.
want to know, just to think about
I
it.
think that's what it might be for me.
Yeah, I would agree with you. But not in a residential district.
Not in an R district. Yeah. Did you want to say anything else too?
No, no.
Oh, in relation to what Tom was saying too, in the last few years, our neighborhood has basically gone from a residential neighborhood to a commercial neighborhood. The traffic's atrocious, the parking on the street is all over the place. You can have the best intentions you want, but the question is who's gonna police it? And this question comes up in the past, well, let the neighbors just call it. We're not there to go police the damn neighborhood. We've got other things to do. And if we go and see cars parked in the street, and let's say they advertise for 12 people and 15 or 20 show up, who's gonna police that? We don't have any power to do that as neighbors. We can maybe call Julie or somebody else, but, and you're not gonna drive up here just to go and fix that mess either. So by the time this all gets done and you got 6 cars parked in the street, you can hardly get down the street, then what happens if somebody gets run over? You know, are we as neighbors supposed to be saying, oh, you can't go and do that and go car to car and throw people out of there? I think the 4-bedroom thing was thought through very thoroughly with very good, common sense. And the density of the neighborhood just makes it right now, it's just like a big commercial motel neighborhood. And you don't have the same people there every week, or even sometimes twice a week.
I simply, do want to say we're not asking for more people. That was never our intention. We were just doing what we were approved to do by our permit.
I understand that
Yeah.
what I'm getting is we've like rented a house in Fish Creek that was a 6-bedroom house. And we just invited some more friends and neighbors up there. And we said, well, come on up and we'll have pizza dinner and, we'll get together. And we were expecting maybe 10 people at most. 20 showed up. And that was just for one night, but that was the Saturday night or something, you'd get away with that. So are we gonna throw 20 people out of the house? No. They had plenty of room for parking on the property, but nonetheless, I mean, that's what happens.
I think the shame of this is I don't think that we should go beyond 4. I don't, but I do acknowledge that we've probably got some of the more responsible STR owners that are actually coming here and showing up. I think that I want to give them credit for that because they actually took time to come here. And I think that a lot of them that are causing problems aren't actually going to show up here and have that conversation. They're going to be so remote. And then they're not going to be involved, so. It's not personal, but I don't see that area making sense to have more than 4 bedrooms, because I think that that is exactly why we put that limit out.
Any other? Yes, Tom?
I have a question. Do you have a?
No, Tom, you have to talk to us.
Oh,
You guys cannot talk back and forth, I'm sorry.
Oh,
You can after the meeting.
Great as that, right? Okay, I gotta say, well, I had read that this owner also owns a 5-bedroom rental in Ephraim. So I have my question to you is that true?
My answer is, it is true. That is, we also own a property in Ephraim. We rented for 2 years for that. We are hoping to retire up here, and we have families hoping to retire up here. And so we have these two, we are the hosts of that house in Ephraim. And, you know, we plan to retire up here because we love it. We grew up around here. We got engaged up here. Our kids had wedding anniversaries. I mean, we love our county, but so, yeah, that's how we are trying to get up here sooner to be permanent residents, is by having that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we've rented for 2 years. We've had no complaints in Ephraim. We've had all 5-star reviews. I'm very hands-on. We always communicate very well. I always personally keep my cell phone on me 24 hours a day. I have an Apple Watch that rings if I'm on vacation, what have you. If a guest has any questions, we've never had any complaints from neighbors. I'm a very hands-on host. I respect the neighborhood, I respect their neighbors, and I want to follow all the rules and guidelines. I understand that things are complicated because there are perhaps some people who don't do that. And on behalf of all SDR owners, I apologize for that and for any of the challenges that it's brought forth in the neighborhood.
Thank you.
But we're simply following the rules. It is a 5-bedroom home. We are not asking for more. We just want to be transparent about what the layout's going to be when people come there, but
Okay.
and I was assuming because it seemed like there was about 21 other 5-bedroom plus rentals in Sister Bay that, and since it was part of the, you know, we were offered to come and request that and pay the fee to do that. I thought it was most appropriate to bring it in front of the commission to ask their opinion on it.
Any other discussion or questions from the commission? Does anybody care to make a motion?
I'll make a motion, we deny the request.
Motion by Bell. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Second by Kane. All those in favor respond with an aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Thank you for
Thank you.
coming.
I think I'm gonna do this piece of paper because I have my phone number on here. And I have their phone number.
Item number 7D, review development agreement template.
Okay, so, this was the Premier Fieldcrest Sister Bay LLC. And
Yeah.
And we had recommended approval of that project and we recommended it to the board. And when it got to the board level, their attorney said, we don't like the template, you know, they had a lot of changes, like your P on property was lowercase, it should be uppercase, and they made a ton of changes, and I've shared with you the changes that they offered and the ones Randy agreed to and some comments on them. I'll just go through it real quick with you. I'm not gonna, for the most part, I agree with what they have. It's an old template. It wasn't the best. So some of them I think are great changes. We discussed a lot of things. What we
Can you go page by page?
Sure.
Starting
Let's start
at
on
118.
page 118. So, they had originally wanted us to, when we're talking about who, the name of the property we're working with, they wanted originally us to put, you know, are they the sole member of the LLC or what are they with? And I said, no, we're not gonna do that because we get our information from the Department of Financial Institutions. We don't have access to people, the LLC paperwork, and we're not gonna be researching that. So I said, we go with,
You can,
with work.
No. no, you can go onto the, you can find it.
Yeah, we,
I know, is it DFI, Department of Financial Institutions
We do.
website?
we do DFI and we look for the registered agent or the agent, and that's who we put on all the documents, or
Okay.
that's who we've always done.
Okay.
And staff helps with that. They wanted it to say registered agent. We're like, that's fine. We'll add that. They're no big deal. The rest on page 118, you can see, yeah, they're good changes. No objection. When you get to page 119, you go down to H. They had minor stuff, they wanted it to say, H is really about that access. And they said, we agree, we'll agree that, yeah, if there's ever a need to have that second access there and it gets cleaned up, we're willing to put the money in, we're willing to work with you guys on it. So went back and forth. They had that, we would have to allow the developer a commercially reasonable time. I said, no, I think we need to have a defined time limit on there. I put 12 months in there.
I question the 12 months. Because we have to work with DOT to clean up that access point in front of the mobile gas station.
Yeah,
We know the DOT does not move swiftly. So, and we've talked about how the research has to be done. We're gonna have to work with multiple property owners to narrow that, to change it, to get it out. I am very concerned. 12 months is not long enough.
so when you read the previous print on there, though, it says, we're gonna work with DOT, once all the approvals are given and we know what can happen, they have 12 months to get the old asphalt out of there, is really what this is saying. Because the beginning part is saying, the village believes a second access to the property is necessary. And therefore, in the future, if the Department of Transportation authorizes access off 42, so
However long it takes.
yep, however long that
Okay.
takes, a second developed access shall be provided from the property to 42. If the access is not permitted, so at that point, so all the work has been done and DOT says, nope, you're done, they have 12 months to get the asphalt out of there.
Okay.
They had wanted to say commercially reasonable, and I was like, that's too great.
I don't even know what that terminology means. It's in multiple places in here, commercially reasonable.
Yeah, their attorney really likes that. Randy went along with it. This is one where I'm like, no, it's gotta be black and white. So I put the 12 in,
Okay.
if you're okay with that. So they
So
did
if-
agree to
if
that.
DOT denies this,
Mhm.
there's gonna only end up with one access to that property and it's off Fieldcrest. Right?
Yes. Mhm.
That's a lot. of
Yes, it
people
is.
Down that little narrow road. We went by there today because we were looking at that lot that was getting shredded. Because they're gonna put up the next STR on the opposite side of the entrance going in. And there was a big semi kind of work truck parked there. So it left this little tiny lane for people to come in and out. It's just,
Yeah.
they planned that entrance.
Are they,
there.
is a construction tractor trailer allowed to block a road?
Well, it's like they're either parking there or they're parking on Fieldcrest. Either way, there's not much room.
Yeah, the ones that have parked on Fieldcrest, they haven't blocked it, and they have torn up the side of the road, and we did make the developer go back and fix the road. They tore up the ditch on those, so we made them go back and fix it. You can get through there, but you're right, it's tight.
It's real tight.
I mean, you have to know that you can't go through it fast by any means. Yeah, if the DOT says no, they're all gonna funnel on Glenley.
There's just no other way that they could have access to that lot with those two new.
That's why we
apartment
have to
buildings.
do everything we possibly can to rectify this.
It's like 24 new units. So potentially 48 more people coming in and out of there.
I think when you see that Christ property develop, there's gonna have to be a major thing done there in that area. You know, I think that you need some engineering, traffic impact analysis, you need some major work done out there. Development of that Chris property might catapult that, but in the meantime, we have to pursue
That's
that
true.
and see what needs to be done.
So,
And I'm assuming by this, the plan commission is saying staff go forward and work with the DOT to get that whole thing cleaned up or figured out how it's gonna look.
well, you said we had to deal with all the business owners because it's too
We are.
wide, we need to shrink.
Yeah.
So on I don't understand the sentence. Construction dumpsters shall be on site during the construction period and refuse or refuse 44.
Yes,
What
so,
does that mean?
so that was, those are typos. So that's, you know, the little numbers on the side, when I cut and paste, the 44 and the 45 went with it. Just ignore those.
Oh, so refuse managed, snow number.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
refuse managed and the dumpster, it's not on the. I do have a cleaned up version here. And I see it is still on there too. So that's a typo, Denise, but I know the neighbor had questioned that as well.
Okay, so then on line 45, why can't it just be the developer shall ensure no construction waste blows onto adjacent properties?
Well, that's how we had it written.
Okay, well,
Well,
I
it,
think,
it said the property owner shall ensure no
Right.
construction, yeah.
right, so commercially is already taken out because that's ridiculous wording.
Yep.
But reasonable measures. I think we go back to the developer needs to ensure. We talk about the time frame that if they don't ensure, they have reasonable measures, reasonable to who? The neighbor whose property it's blowing on? Reasonable to you, Julie, sitting in your office, reasonable to the other people on the street. Makes no sense.
So I think so that's one where, you know, they wanted the commercially reasonable. I said, how about reasonable, and didn't like the word commercially. If this is one that we don't support, we will just have to relay that. So what do you want to do? You're making that recommendation to the board. Do you want it to go back the way it said? Where it would say the developer shall take measures to ensure no construction, et cetera?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, no, measures also goes away. The developer shall ensure.
Okay. Which was the way it was written before. Okay, the rest, I think you can zip down to. So number J, and this is one where the neighbor had made a comment too. They changed it, we're talking about the garbage blowing around, and they said that, okay, so we say there's a 20-foot wide stretch of land that is unobstructed, and as a result, snow is pushed onto the adjacent neighbor's property, and litter frequently placed on and their attorney wants it to say, and litter is alleged to be frequently placed. I'll be honest with you, I don't think that's a big deal. It is alleged. We haven't seen it ourselves. I know the neighbor, Steve didn't like that, but it's a legal term, right? You're accusing somebody of something that's alleged, so I didn't have an issue with that. The trees when mature, I do agree with that language being there. And then when you came down to the dog park, that's where that commercially reasonable comes in.
Goes away again, in my opinion.
Well, in that one, I was like, okay, so again, we don't have a definition, but I'm like, okay, so from a commercial standpoint, is that, you know, they're gonna put signs up or something commercial to make sure it happens? This is one.
The
of the-
developer is the owner of the property.
Yeah.
So why is it that they cannot ensure and relay to the manager on site that a bulletin, a flyer, they notify all of their people, hey, we're putting in a dog park. Please make sure, not asking them to go and knock on everybody's door and say, let me see your dog license. Inform your tenants.
I think in this case, that's what commercially reasonable means.
That means nothing to me. It has no bearing.
So make a reasonable effort. I think that that's really what you're saying is, let's say commercially reasonable. I mean, commercially, like, I've not heard that legalese come out in any contract before.
Yeah, it's the first time I've heard it also.
Me too. Like I said, Randy agreed to it. I personally like things black and white. It's easier for me to enforce because I have a hard time. How do I enforce a gray word, right?
I mean, you can just say notify the tenants.
You wanna hear what the legal definition is?
No,
No. Cause there is one.
I'm sure there is.
I agree.
I don't wanna know.
It should be more concise. And
Why
it should
couldn't you
just
put
say,
it, they could put it in like a rental contract every time they have to renew their rent or something, or their lease. Something should be written in there, so the people know up front they have to have their dogs licensed and vaccinated or whatever all that stuff is. But
yeah, this,
you have to notify them, I guess, until
And I
this
think,
all goes down.
yeah, and I think they're saying those are what we're talking about are commercially reasonable ways of doing
can't we
it.
just be more forefront and say,
Yeah.
the developer shall communicate with their tenants on, informing them they need to have a dog license. Instead of all this commercially
Or else they'll
reasonable,
get kicked
this
out.
is like,
You could.
that's stupid.
I agree.
Let's just be more direct and say, this is what they have to do.
So they shall communicate.
To their tenants. That the dog owners have to have obtained a dog license.
Through the village.
Through the village, yeah, to live there.
Janelle, are you getting that too to help me a little bit there?
Yeah, so you're saying what, no, communicate or inform?
Communicate
Communicate with
To-
their
to
tenant
their tenants,
that they must.
dog owners shall.
Shall, okay.
Be required to have a dog license from the village. Which in turns means those dogs have had rabies shots, and then if they're in that park, people feel safe because the dogs aren't gonna bite. If they bite them, they're not gonna get rabies. Okay, going down to number 4 on there. This is one, we had the same concern with Garrett Bader. They don't like that we are saying that they have to seek bids from Door County contractors, and I always tell them, that doesn't mean you have to go with that contractor, but you have to try. Because I always use the example, it's not really fair, you come up here and you develop, and we have people looking for work, and you just come in with your own set of contractors, and our people don't have a shot at the job. Once I had explained that, he was okay with pretty much the way it's written, but wanted that word commercially reasonable in there again.
Nope.
Reasonable efforts,
No.
take the whole thing out,
Mhm.
will make every effort, is what it said, I think.
Will make an effort.
Or why don't they just say, seek bids from Door County? And if they don't get any bids, they'll have to go with somebody else.
And that does happen. It's really hard to get electrical.
I know.
Metal or anything. Okay, the developer represents that it will make,
They will.
yeah, the attorney kept changing it to it. And I questioned if that was a legal, I've never heard of it. And I've changed it in many areas, but that one I left it as it. So the developer represents, they will make,
Yeah, it's supposed to be it. That was probably in my head.
yeah,
Yeah, it is?
they changed it to it. To me, they sounds better, but the attorney changed it to it in several areas. Okay, the developer represents that it will make
An effort.
an effort to seek. Okay, we're leaving it at that. The next one is really on page 122.
No, I'm on 121.
Okay, what do you got?
Line 13D. The developer is not in material default. What does it mean by adding the word material?
That's something that Randy and the attorney agreed on, and Janelle could look it up. But in my opinion, that means they're not in default of the standard conditions that are in here. Like
But it means
what we've
it's a-
asked them to do and they haven't defaulted on it.
Material default refers to a party's failure to honor the clauses in a contract. So you couldn't sue them because that doesn't happen.
So so it goes back to whatever what we're stipulating in here, as long as they do it, they should be okay.
And the word default doesn't cover that also. This doesn't allow them to skirt anything by adding the word material.
I don't think so. I think that's just legalese.
Okay.
We use that a lot.
Still on 121, line 38, the village reserves the right to reasonably designate. The village reserves the right to designate. I think reasonably also needs to be removed there. That's all.
Okay. 122. This is an area, if you go down to the green area. They said, if we give them a notification, they should have 24 hours to clean it up, and I said no. It's 4 hours, but I will agree that if it's outside of. Yeah, 4 hours or until 10 AM, but if it were a weekend or a holiday, you would get more because we understand you're gonna have to get people up here. You're just not gonna have people working there. It may take longer to get people to the site to clean it up, so I did agree to that, but.
I really don't like it. I understand what the verbiage is saying, but if more blows, if you have something blowing, then that means most likely more is going to blow. There's going to be more trash. It's going to go farther. And if it's blowing, that means that you have an unenclosed dumpster. It's filled too full. So I'm not happy if it falls on a weekend or a holiday. That is their problem. Why should neighbors be impacted?
I want to ask Steve a question here. When that happened, how long did it take?
And then they clean it up.
Yes.
Well, apparently, this is during construction now, I think that's what you're talking about. It must have happened during the week, there were like 15, 20 pieces of cardboard boxes and stuff all over the place. And, we went and tried to find somebody to talk about it, and nobody showed up. And the one guy that I did talk to that was throwing the cardboard on top of his dumpster was already so full, every other piece was falling off. He just said, well, he says, you gotta talk to somebody like in charge. I said, well, who's in charge? He said, we didn't know. And so basically, nobody cleaned it up. We ended up picking up all the stuff and throwing it over the, property line and just saying, here's your trash, and just threw it over there. I think the first 3-4 times I was trying to be a good neighbor and I was picking this stuff up, throwing it in our garbage, but then we gotta pay to have it, get rid of it. And I didn't think that was right. And after these guys were just saying, well, you have to talk to somebody in charge, and nobody seemed to care. And they stated, we just gotta get rid of this stuff. It's like, okay, then we're just gonna throw it back in your yard and you deal with it. And after that, the manager, once it was rented, then she tried to tell us initially that it was all from the Shopko property. I said, from the Shopko property, there's no trash can around here. All the Tom's trash is they're in the garage. Neighbors across the street are in the garage, and we let all our cans in a building. And so, this is ridiculous. Well, apparently somebody did come back and clean that up. But just, I think 2 weeks ago, my wife went and emailed Julie that we had more plastic grocery bags and stuff rolling around in our yard, and someone caught in the trees. And some of the stuff that was there was discarded mail, with a Glen Lane address on it. And so we called, and I think somebody cleaned it up, but it's snowed since then, so I don't know if the stuff is still laying there or whether anybody did that.
They do have, their engineer has been very responsive. He's been at our meetings. Usually, and I know it's not his problem or his fault, but he's my best contact, and a lot of times I'll call him and I'm like, hey, I've got a complaint on this. And he has been very responsive. Now, I understand when the project is done, he's gone, and it's really not his responsibility, but he is the one that I think I had contacted on that and on other issues I've had out there. And he's been really, really good about responding to it.
This is Joel.
Joel. Mhm.
Well, if they do that, I mean, you know, like I said, with the first phase one, we didn't see that. It was basically the stuff would just lay there and nobody would do anything, we just throw it back across the property.
Yeah, and I just know what has happened so far. When I call him, he's been responsive. I don't know if he's always there. I don't know.
I mean, I guess I can live with 12 hours. It is.
If they don't have somebody that's up here, they're gonna be getting somebody to actually agree to come up here, and then it's gonna be 2 hours on top of that.
Tim Helbrick is the builder, so he's here when he's here, I think he has done some cleanup as well, I think. Cause there was another issue, but
And-
he's not always here either, though.
Should we have in all, because we're talking about the development agreement only, should we have a place in here when it talks about debris, not just during construction, but maybe at any time, that there is a place for a phone number on who to call moving forward, or multiple phone numbers? It is, the owner, it could be the manager of the complex. Granted, they could come and go and it would be somebody else. But that we would have to be updated on, so we always have a contact number.
You would think we would want that.
You would think we would want that.
Probably want a maintenance contact, an emergency contact. And have those two separate things, because you never know. I mean, I'm trying to think about the places where I fill out homes where we have multiple contacts for that. You've got. I guess maybe you have a technical contact depending on what size development it is. I mean, if there's a problem with the infrastructure, you have an engineer essentially.
Yeah, I think, if there's a problem like that, we would pull the file and see who the engineer was. I think if you're looking more at like the garbage or an emergency thing, that's one that you probably want on site somewhere, like on the dumpster or something, right? So people could call it, because if there's an issue on a Saturday and the neighbor wants to call somebody, if he has to wait till Monday to have somebody pull a file for him, that's not gonna help him. It's almost like you have to have it maybe on a card that goes out to the neighbors, adjacent neighbors, maybe on the dumpster. I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's a bad idea. I think we'd have to think about how we do that.
How we do it. Right, because it would be for other people who would, yeah, okay.
Page 123.
Now, are you also amending right now for the development agreement? Are you doing it at the same time, or is this a template?
This is the template.
Okay, so this is gonna apply to anybody?
Yep.
Okay.
So on page 123, I didn't like this. This is one Randy and Joel or the attorney had agreed to and went along with it. I mean, we can make it work. I just don't like it. I think it was easier before, but basically they're cutting out all the old language we had. And they're adding new language about the landscaping contractor, but when I was looking at this, I'm like, okay, so now moving forward, reviewing these, not only do I need a landscape plan, I need a bid associated with it that I can now tie to it and hold accountable. So it means we're gonna have to do more work up front getting bids from these landscapers. And that part I wasn't crazy about.
But it all means the same.
It means but it does, because it means that the project is gonna get restored, and that's our
Okay.
goal.
Well, then we go back and we say no to their
Oh.
suggestion.
Yeah.
If it's a bunch of wording and more work, then with the same outcome, then they just have to deal with our wording.
Yeah, I think the part they didn't, the couple parts they didn't like, one is that we're not using their landscaper to determine the cost, we're using a Door County landscaper. And again, we're looking at keeping our businesses employed, right? So we like using the Door County ones, and they're like, well, that's not. My understanding was they didn't think that was fair, because maybe their landscaper is $10,000 cheaper or something, I don't know. And then, we
Well,
also.
then get it done,
And then
and then we won't have a problem, right?
Right. Yeah.
Do you all agree we go back to our wording?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I will say, since I've been here, which hasn't been long, but everybody has done the landscaping, and if there has been an issue, we talk to them and they go out there and do it. There's only one that we ran into that didn't do what we asked. And we actually had to do summons and complaint on it, and now we have a stipulation showing when it's gonna get done. So it's pretty uncommon
Right.
that somebody doesn't do it.
Right. It's not a big, it's not like we constantly have problems, right? We have many others, just not that one.
If nobody has anything else, my next one. Would be page 129.
That's where I'm at.
Okay. So. The attorneys have recommended. That the language at the end of 20 be removed. And instead we add the
The end
line.
of 20. Oh,
Yep.
section 20,
Yep,
yes.
I'm sorry, right above there in section 20. And and instead we add that line on section 21. This is a private development and no bonding requirement shall apply. I don't have an issue with that, but we are gonna have to keep it's something I have to keep an eye on the template is. To always make sure we're checking, because. For those projects where bonding would apply. We'll have to leave that in and take that out, but we'll do.
Okay, no, we can't rely on memory and have to change that. Everything from line 4 to line 8 now becomes its own 20.a or whatever,
Renumber them.
or renumber it. And maybe it's check this box if applies. We cannot. No offense, administrators change, things get lost, people's memories fade.
Do you want it to be an affirmative check, or do you want it to be check if this does not apply? Cause then the developers are
Either
gonna come
way.
back to us and say, no, we need to check this. There's even less chance of it getting missed.
But the verbiage has to stay, they just, depending upon the project. There has to be a box that's checked or not, depending upon the wording. And then you would also do it for the. Line 23 and 24.
Okay.
However, you figure the best way to do that, to keep it all in there, so it's never lost.
So basically, we're keeping the old, we're keeping the new,
Mhm.
And you're including check boxes.
well,
Depending, it was
I'll
something,
figure it out.
something for acknowledgement
Okay.
on which one applies.
a lot of times in here. we've changed it to say if applicable. So because we have people like, why do I'm not signing it on? And so you'll see in some areas, I've changed it to say if applicable. And I
Yeah.
think that's how you word this one too. It is. If this doesn't apply, then this. applies. So. Okay, page 130.
Yeah, what you have in green on line 20. Oh, never mind, I wrote okay.
Yeah, so in 29, we talked about a process, but this is just when I was reading, I'm like, we should clean that up. We talk about a process, but we don't talk about how you go about doing it, what the fee is. So I just added that line. And the attorney didn't like the word courtesy review, and I had explained to Randy, we use that term in other areas. We're not gonna change our template to be inconsistent. We want to use the same language in our template that we have on our fee schedule, that we have in our code. So even if they don't like it, we're looking at consistency. So, and I got a note today that the attorney was okay with that. So, I do think we should add that. It's, like I said, that's just a cleanup. Same thing with below duration. I added the line, the cost of the public hearing shall be the responsible of the developer. Just so it's very clear in the agreement, and people don't come back and expect that they just get a free public hearing. I mean,
Right.
it costs money to advertise and to pay for our time, so. Okay, let's keep going on the template here. On exhibit C, 139. The attorney wanted us to strike that entire section G, that entire bond requirement thing. And I said no. So instead I added the words if applicable. So, because we are gonna have projects where we need that. And again, we're gonna have to remember, put in that bond section in there. So instead of striking it, I just added the if applicable. And they did not object to that I'm aware of. So. So with those changes, that would be our new template.
So you want, does this template have to go to the board?
No.
Okay, so then we can make a motion to approve as reviewed and amended.
Who wants to do that?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Kane. All those in favor respond with an aye. Opposed? Carried.
So the next one then is we would. Oh, before we do the next one, because this was sent back to us, we're gonna need a motion to reconsider our previous motion for the conditional use permit and the development.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. All those in favor respond with an aye. Aye. Opposed?
Okay, so this was sent back to us, so we have to reconsider it. At the last time, we didn't have an issue with the conditional use permit, we didn't have an issue with the development agreement. But it was sent back because there's changes to the form now, right, which we just approved. So we have to decide, what, do we approve the conditional use permit? Because we're looking at it new. What are those conditions? Do we recommend approval of the development agreement? What are those conditions? I think that in my mind, that those conditions basically are the same other than correcting that language on Highway 42 access that we just talked about. That should be added in there. The 12 months to clean up that asphalt. I'm on page 143. I think we probably strike that reasonable measures, I think is what we had
Yep.
agreed to do on number 3. And then.
Well,
and then
actually,
change that
I'll-
language on the dog park as well.
Yeah. I mean, everything in red comes out under 3. Okay. The same commercially reasonable efforts. So then the communicating under 5, that
That would read the way we had, just discussed it.
Right.
So we would, that's how we would do it, so. You know, with those changes, I think we should approve the conditional use permit again. And I think that we should recommend approval of the development agreement. With what we just talked about, and those plans we had reviewed in December. Now, on the development agreement. One thing we didn't talk about is, what is the term of this? You know, we had said, this is gonna expire December 12th, 2025. They decided to delay it. Do we stick with December 12th, 2025 as the deadline for that development agreement? Or now do we extend it out to that new board deadline for board review, which would be February 16th? or whatever
That's
it is.
fine.
February? Okay. So if everybody's okay with that, then we'd want to
Take over.
So if everybody's okay with that, we'd want a motion to approve the conditional use permit and a motion to recommend the development agreement as amended at the meeting.
So moved.
Motion by Berto, I'll second by Val.
Aye.
That's for all of those items at once.
Yep.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
So can I read that motion? Is it a combined motion or two separate?
Come on.
Okay, so I've got that the village board approved the conditional use permit as well as the development agreement for the 2 12-unit apartment buildings Premier Fieldcrest would like to construct on parcel blah, blah, blah. That is located off of Glen Lane as amended at this meeting. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Doing. I was paying attention.
Yeah,
I was like, how come I don't have a copy of the
Sounds
short-term
all right.
rental text amendment?
Okay.
So the next one is the text memo short-term rentals. Janelle, I don't have a copy of that one. You must have skipped that one.
It should be pages 146
Yep, I don't have them.
or 145. You want this?
Yeah, I'll take a look at yours because I don't have it in my packet.
Okay, there you go.
So, as the staff report said, we had told the public we were gonna revisit this in January. The board, my understanding is they're waiting for some, they've talked to that. It's been mentioned that it's gonna come back to them in January or February, so I think we need to discuss, should there be any changes we recommend or not, or just leave it.
A question I would have here is as I understand it, the licensing component is not something the plan commission would deal with. That is the board. correct?
Right.
So if there was to be a change on how the licensing was done, if there was any change to that.
That's
it's not
right.
here. Okay,
That's right, we're only looking at the zoning aspect of it, what's in chapter 66. So the one thing that I've struggled with when we're enforcing the code is, we say you can have 4 stalls. Does that mean 4 total on the property? Or does that mean 4 outside? And we've often struggled with that, you know, there's some people that have 2-stall, 3-stall garage, they now have 7 cars, is that okay? Maybe it is, maybe we only care what's outside. But it needs to be clear because, again, without clear language, it makes it difficult to enforce and it makes us easy to challenge.
so what is our goal with that? I mean, I can think that the impact, I think if you look at the Fieldcrest area, the impact of those STRs in there is proportional to the number of cars that are there. Because I think that it probably somewhere around half of the complaints have got to do with the number of cars
Yeah,
that are going through there and everything that's related to that. So
all of those homes have 2-car garages, so they could feasibly put 6 cars there. And I don't have a problem with 4 cars being in the driveway, because if they're gonna put up 12 people in a house, you could have 6 couples and they all come in a separate car. So I don't know.
but aren't those 2 additional cars, aren't they putting that much more of a burden on Fieldcrest, on everything coming up here, on all the issues that we have?
I think that, I don't know how you say it, that problem has flown. We can't control that anymore. Because all 5 of those STRs, they are generating big bucks and they're advertising that they can walk to the village, they can walk to the wedding barn, bring your whole family and you can stay at the house and we can have a, you know, whole family gathering and stuff, so. As far as enforcing how many people park in the driveway, if they aren't on the lawn. And they're not parking in the street, because if you tell them they can only have 4, including their 2 or 3 car garage. I don't know how that's gonna fly. What are they gonna do? Keep the doors closed and then you're gonna see 4 cars in the driveway and you don't know.
I mean, with any of this, you're only gonna get the people who are
I
in
know.
good faith gonna comply with
Yeah.
it. And I think like the woman that was here tonight.
Well, I
probably-
appreciate that she's got a lovely home
Mhm.
and she was real honest about it. And then the guy right next door to her is marketing his with an office with 2 queen beds in it. It's like, wow. And I'm sure the rest of them are all gonna do the same thing, because those homes are all about the same size with a walkout down below where they can do it. I don't know how the newest one, they're tearing out that lot right now. I don't know how that's gonna go.
I guess what is the goal of the 4 stalls then? What do we want the outcome be on that? We want there to be not as many vehicles going to these STRs?
I suppose it's not fair if you tell somebody that doesn't have a garage, they can only have 4 cars. And then the next guy's got a 2-car garage. And he can have 2 in the garage and then 4, so he's really allowed to have 6. I don't know,
I think it's 4, in my opinion.
4 total.
4 total
For the property.
for the property. Doesn't matter where you put them. I also think too, though, that, and we don't have this in our packet tonight. But, with tweaking this verbiage so it's more clear, I think somehow on the application. It needs to be very specific. And that in their rules and regulations that they are giving. That 4 cars max are allowed. If you can't pack up, however many people are, 12 people are coming to stay. If you can't manage that in 4 vehicles, then maybe you need to rent a van.
Or maybe they shouldn't have Pheasant Park.
I think changes that we make have to be reflected in the permit that they fill out. And what we're requesting, and like what I had said, to Aaron, who was in here, earlier about
The driveway.
that, it says free parking on property up to 4 cars. That doesn't say 4 cars max.
No, it doesn't.
That can be deceiving.
Yeah.
There is no paid parking, so I don't even know what free parking on the property means.
Yeah, so when we issue the license, it says maximum cars allowed, and we put the number 4. They get an email or a letter, depending how they communicate. And it says, be advised, you can only have 4 cars maximum. And I asked them to change their rules and send me a copy of the rule. Before I give it to them, I'm like, you have to change your rules to say 4 cars max, send me a copy. The problem we see, and it's almost every single one, is those rules are not the same rules you're seeing on
Right.
site.
And I also think that, but that's why we will have a compliance officer who is going to go to all these people's websites or look them up or whatever. And on the permit application, is there a place, whether they're on Airbnb or VRBO, with the number? So it's
Yeah, you
easy
should be
to
able
type
to
in.
look at it.
Right. you
Because
should
some
be
of
able to
these
look at
rentals
it.
you can't really find.
Right.
I know.
There's a lot of sites.
Yeah, the tourism zone maintains a listing which has their Airbnb number.
But it should be on our permit. So if we're hiring that compliance officer to start doing all of this work, they just it needs to be on the permit.
You know that big,
Every site that you are on, your number has to be listed.
are they all on there? Do most of those sites, you have a spot where you have to put your number?
Well, if it's Airbnb or VRBO, I know that there's a number associated. If you have somebody like Rent Door County,
Yeah.
you know, I don't think that there's a number. I can't
And if you have
remember.
an agent that's marketing it for you, I don't think there's a number on those.
And maybe along with that number, there's fill in the blank. Where is it advertised? What website? Rent Door County, Airbnb, VRBO,
Yeah,
there's all
should be
kinds
able
of
to know.
sites. We should know.
We could ask them to just link to it too. We are. Today, when I was talking with the web developer, there's an actual form thing where they can do everything online and just submit it. And so it'd be easier for them to just put that link in there and send it to us too.
Okay.
Which brings up another, okay, so we're going to propose an amendment that clarifies it's 4 total for the property.
Does the state require anything different, or are we allowed to make our own?
On this one, we can do some bouquet. Okay, so that's the first do you want to just send that to public hearing or recommend it to the board and then it comes back to us and we'll hold a public hearing?
No, let's just go to public here.
Public hearing, okay, so we're gonna do 4 total on the property. Then the other one I have is, we've been challenged on this one is people, it has been raised that we should be able to advertise this for rent before we get the license. And I said, no, you can't. And they argued with me on that one. And my position is, look, the tourism zone says if you advertise before you get that permit, you're in violation. We shouldn't be any different, right?
Right, we need to be consistent.
And the state says they define a STR as a residential dwelling that is offered for rent. So as long as you are offered for rent, the state is saying you're an STR. So I think when you're offering or advertising and you don't have a license, it's a violation. And I think that needs to be cleaned up in the code.
Yep.
But Nate, I just thought of something, but that's chapter 18. So that one would be one that will go directly to the board.
Well, let's include that. We're gonna have to take that to board.
That one go
We'll
directly to the
do
board.
that
in
February
February?
and March.
Okay.
we get
When
that.
the chapter 66 goes, bring them all together.
No, let me think about that, but when we touch chapter 18, we'll
Okay.
bring that up.
And then the question I get a lot is, what portion of a non-conforming driveway must be removed so it will no longer be considered non-conforming? I always say from the asphalt bed to the right-of-way line. Because without that, you can't get in your property anyway, but that's the part I can't control, because that's the public part. So I'm like, you have to remove that. Can I block it off? Nope. Can I just put some milk cans out there? Nope. You have to remove it, is what I'm telling people. Because if the milk cans are there, they can be moved, and then you really haven't removed the non-conforming driveway. So I'm like, you have to physically tear out the access that is making it non-conforming if you want to be conforming, right? What says you have to come into compliance? What is that? Do we want to define what that is?
I think it goes beyond the right of way if I think the whole driveway needs to be removed if it's an impervious surface. If it's, granted, if it's paved up to the right of way, but then it's just kind of lawn or gravel or something like that, I'm okay. But if it's asphalt or concrete, if it's impervious surface,
But how far?
all the whole thing is what I'm saying.
But so if I have a U-shaped driveway, at what point, you're not gonna remove the whole thing, because you still need your driveway on the other side of the U. At what point, and how do you define that? The halfway point of the U? What if the door is 3/4 along the U,
Also, so at what point does it no longer become a driveway? If it's not connecting there, then it's not a driveway, then do we regulate how much impervious surface somebody has? We do, but not at that point.
Yeah, and that's how I look at it. Once the access is gone, it's not a driveway.
Then is it a parking space and then is that?
Well, does it have to be seated? Does it have to match?
I would think somebody who's trying to rent their property, I have a guy here who's in violation, he rented 6 months. In 6 months, he made $70,722. This is a guy who didn't get a license. No, this is a condo, this isn't a house. But I would think if you're getting 70,000 in 6 months,
Holy moly.
if you're getting 70,000. And that's why when people say they're not making money,
They're not a business.
I don't know if you're getting told the truth, okay?
Well, 1 second here.
But
I just
this
gotta
one-
bring this up here because we've gotta be careful of plan commission, because I've always heard since the entire time I've been on plan commissions, we don't talk about money.
Right, but what I'm saying is, if you're making that kind of money, I'm guessing you'd want your driveway cleaned up. You're not gonna want it to look bad. So I would think you're gonna invest the money to clean that up to make it look decent. But maybe not, you know? So the question is, do we propose an amendment that cleans up that language? Because right now it is gray. And it's one where eventually somebody's gonna challenge. To me, once the access is gone, it's no longer a driveway. But we don't say that. Well,
How do we define the access is gone? Once there's no longer pavement connecting to the village road, how do we?
from the roadbed to the right of way, because I can only control the access up to the right of way.
Do we want to return that to the natural slope? You know, that would be something I could see, otherwise people just.
People
could still drive
just
through it.
drive right on it. I mean, if you just take the concrete out, you know. You still have access to the driveway.
Yeah.
Well, remember what we did for the house that was built just a few years ago on the corner of Birchwood and Scandia. And they had a driveway on Birchwood and they had one on Scandia. And maybe that's before you got on, Ron. And we made them, it was not asphalt though. I think it was just lawn, but there was a separation of trees and an obvious tire marks.
There's a lot of maintenance vehicles going down.
And we had them plant trees. So if they're not removing the entire driveway, then they have to plant trees so that there's no option on using
So you
an
can't
impervious
drive into it.
surface. A minimum of 4 feet tall.
What landscaping plan? How about, landscaping plan approved by the plan commission, meaning they have to go through the hassle of coming in here and having you review it?
That's a lot. I mean, like. I've heard from many administrators that says, let's try and keep everything over the counter if we can. In this case, I think.
I agree
4 foot
with you.
trees.
Kind of overkill on that one.
I mean, if a 4 foot tall tree is, that's big enough that you're not gonna drive over it,
Right.
but it's small enough that it's gonna have a good chance of surviving long term.
So 6
And we're getting more trees.
6 foot bald and burlap is what is referenced elsewhere in the code.
So that would mean effectively it's gonna be 4 or 5 feet
They
tall
have-
once it's planted.
They have to have a 6 foot tall tree.
But if it's bald and burlap, that means that so much of it's gonna be underground.
I think the 6 is actually from the above ground.
I think that's too tall.
4
Really?
foot.
I think a 4 foot. And I don't know that it has to be bald and burlapped. I mean,
4 foot trees.
somebody might want to plant cedars. You don't buy cedars, you go dig them up in your neighbor's yard.
But the problem is then we're also monitoring to make sure they're growing, whereas if you're paying good money for a tree, you're gonna make sure that tree lives versus these
Or
ones.
guaranteed,
Versus
if you're
these
buying
ones that
it
they're
from a
putting.
nursery.
How many trees are you gonna put?
At least 3, because that's how many were in
Yeah,
this one.
because if you put one, they're gonna.
Oh, right, yeah, 3 trees.
Double
Is that-
advocate, so I've got a driveway here, I plant 3 trees right here. I know we don't want them evenly spaced, but in this case, we might want them evenly spaced.
Are they still
how
gonna have to
far-
tear up their asphalt or whatever at the end?
Only for that portion.
Okay,
They're gonna kill their trees if they leave the asphalt in there. That's why it's kind of the trees aren't gonna live if we leave the asphalt. I mean, look, we just talked about the trail,
Right, but
right?
they might. They will probably have to, okay, well then they have to remove 3 feet past the right of way to plant the trees.
Okay.
Yeah, our goal is we don't wanna look at it. If you wanna look at it, fine, but we don't wanna look at it.
The driveway that goes nowhere.
Can I do 5? To make sure it doesn't interfere with a utility line on the right.
Okay.
Oh, 5-foot trees or,
No, 5 feet past the right of way.
okay,
With 6-foot trees,
4-foot trees is what we just said.
but you can contradict in other parts of your code.
This is a totally different code. It doesn't, I don't think. it
Just
is.
because we did that in the past doesn't mean we were right back then.
Right. I think a 4-foot tree is fine.
I like consistency, but you're the boss. 4-foot tree it is.
okay, so what was the earlier language, Julie? I know about the 4-foot trees. but-
Remove the, yeah, I'll have to work with it. Remove the access point from the roadbed to the right of way and restore to a natural state or manicured lawn.
Hold on a second, okay, from the roadbed to the right of way, and then what?
And restore to natural state or manicured lawn. Period. The property wishes to retain the remainder of the impervious surface. They must plant 4-foot tall trees within 5 feet of the right of way.
Hold on a second, we have the remainder. of
No, we have to go back.
the-
Capable of screening.
Read that sentence back, Janelle, the last one you just typed.
Okay. If the property owner wishes to retain the remainder of the impervious surface.
Stop.
Okay,
An additional 5 feet of driveway must be removed to plant 3 4-foot trees. Right,
okay.
Evenly spaced,
evenly spaced.
but one time we'll hear you say that.
They just don't grow the same as
I know.
when you zigzag them.
I know, it's just this one particular.
Was that driveway, like the U-shaped driveway, in effect for licensing this last year?
After July 1st.
So if they had their license prior to July 1st, they could have the U-shaped driveway.
But this new one, they're gonna have to remove it. And people have been warned about that and
Even if they renew, so they're not grandfathered
No.
in.
right,
There's no
Okay.
grandfathering. Whatever the rules are as of the annual date,
July 1st.
whatever we've changed,
or
added, deleted, those are the new rules
The
for
new rules, and
every.
that's what they abide.
Doesn't matter what last year was.
Yep. So the other thing that, I still think we need to address, I just don't know if the timing is right on it, is the fact that I still think it's very unclear that when we tell someone the driveway has to be concrete or asphalt, the code is still not very clear on that, and I think that needs to be cleared up in the code. I think we should wait a while on that one. I think the Plan Commission's interpretation has always been, no, it means hard surface. And I have explained that to people, no, I'm sorry, but the Plan Commission interprets it to mean that driveway has to be hard surfaced. And, but someday I think we need to clean that.
And that's beyond STRs, that's just in general.
In general. Right. Okay. I would like to, propose a topic of conversation about STRs at next month's meeting. And because as I was reviewing the Sister Bay House, who the Wilsons own, Sister Bay, and on Destination Door County, in January during the week, you can rent it anywhere between $893 and $953. On the weekends, it's $1,100 a night. So, and this was brought up, I believe, by Susan Shebo. When we were first implementing, is that, is it really fair to charge the same dollar amount to every STR owner?
Hold on, Denise, that's gonna be not something for plan, that's something that you can deal with at the board, because we don't deal with the licensing of the fees.
But it would be based on bedroom.
I still,
You still think that's,
I mean, that's a conversation that I absolutely intend to have, because that's one,
I think it's a conversation for when we do the fee schedule.
okay,
So then you're gonna have.
so the
sliding
plan
scale
commission would not talk about it,
For
I don't-
SPRs.
okay.
I would object to that.
I
You
think that
would
would
what?
be kind of a pain.
She said we'd have a sliding scale and I said I would object to that, but you guys are the boss, you know, it's one that the board would have to discuss either when they do the fee schedule or when they look at the STRs.
Okay, then I would like to have that conversation. I did ask Heidi today if, on a spreadsheet somewhere in the office, there was all the people who owned STRs, if it stated how many bedrooms there were. And she said no. And I said, well, that might be information that now the board would want to know, because we have a certain dollar amount budgeted for the compliance officer, for the software, for staff time, etc. So we would have to know the breakdown.
Yeah.
Would we still be meeting the budgetary dollar amount by changing it by per bedroom?
And I think that after we go through this cycle right now, Denise, because we've never asked the number of bedrooms before. Well, I shouldn't say that. We've never verified the number of bedrooms before. Now we have to. So once we get this round licensed, we're gonna have really good data to know how many one bedroom, how many two
Okay.
bedroom.
Well, you could even divide it, so up to 2 bedrooms, this is the amount. 2 bedrooms to 4 bedrooms, this is the amount.
You know what I'd wanna do though with that data? I'd wanna take it and I'd wanna compare it to the violation file and say, do one bedroom people use more services or less than a 4 bedroom? Or is a one person still generating the same amount of time to review it and enforce it as I'm doing on a 4 bedroom?
Well, and I do know
That's
that
true.
that is an argument,
Yeah.
that time spent on
Right.
any application, but we can talk about that. Okay. Thank you, Nate. Okay, 7G, draft text amendment, chapter 66, telecommunications.
What you see in green is my understanding, what I was supposed to add after the last meeting. If, this has already been to public hearing, so if we are okay with it, it would go to the board for adoption. Our moratorium ends in February. Not that that's a big deal, but I mean,
Right.
we would have, if it goes to the board in February, we will have done it within our moratorium timeline.
Yeah, I don't think I made any notes in it. Nope. So a motion to
Move to the board.
move to the board,
so
motion by Kane, second. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by her. All those in favor respond with an eye. Aye. Opposed, carried. Ron, are you cold? Are you cold? I can, well, all somebody has to do is speak up. I'll turn up the heat. Nate, read the next agenda item, please.
okay, I'm gonna get back to the top, so. On to H, and annexation and rezoning discussion for Woodcrest and County ZBA.
Okay, so the village purchased, 40 acres at the intersection of County Highway ZZ and Woodcrest Road. And, so we should make a recommendation to the board as to whether it should be annexed or not, okay? The way the process works is the board then sends it back to us to actually assign a zoning and have an ordinance, which then goes back to the board. It's kind of this back and forth thing. But the first conversation is, should we go through an annexation process on this property? I'll tell you from.
But should we? We kind of have to.
Wait,
Well, you could wait, we have other, I mean, you could
So
hang on,
right now, is there just, we need a motion to annex? Is that all we need for this tonight?
you need a motion to recommend to the board that it be annexed right away, and I'll tell you why we want
Okay.
that. Let me tell you from a planning perspective, which by the way, Denise, I have to get some dates from you on that kid. In order to be in that kid, we have to show the annexation is in process, it's annexed or in process, okay? So we want to, and we don't want to just wait, let's annex it now, why not? Recommendation to the board?
Okay, I'll make a motion that we recommend.
Motion by Bell,
Okay,
When I say.
second by
then I want to bring
Shampo.
up the second thing.
All those in favor respond with an aye.
Aye.
Sorry about that, Denise.
Here, that's okay.
The other part of that is, and I've asked Randy about this one, is the statutes say that when you annex it, you assign a temporary zoning district to it. But our code says everything is annexed shall be zoned countryside upon annexation. And in 90 days, you assign a permanent. So I asked Randy, I said, does the statute trump our code that we can ignore that? And I'm waiting for an answer. I just asked him. But by the time we get that answer, it'll be back to us from the board. So, okay, so that's gonna go to the board then with a recommendation to annex, and they're just gonna turn around and give it right back. And I have the annexation ordinance done and we're good to go, so it'll go fast. Okay.
Okay, Skylar, are you awake?
Yes.
7I, review conceptual preliminary plat, former Wilsey property. So, who wants to start?
I'll start.
Okay,
All right, so, we know based on what the people want, like we talked about, they want the conservation or the cluster subdivision, so we do wanna. And I think that's what we wanted to, so I think we wanna keep that, that's also what the ad hoc group had wanted. So I think we wanna make sure we do have that parkland and everything. You know, they said one-way streets were okay, but in talking with Skylar, that was kind of wasteful on this particular project, because we do want that flow to save on adding more streets, is my understanding. They wanted sidewalks, playground, trails. He's doing the side routes, parks. We had information on the trails. That's all in the back of the packet, but I think the big thing is, do we want to go with 45-foot wide lots? Now, we can, some of them could be, you know, you're gonna get some pretty small homes on some of those lots, but that's okay. Because some people were willing to have smaller homes, and you can always put the homes lengthwise instead of parallel to the road. So I think,
Are you saying that all lots are gonna be 45?
I don't think they should. I think you should have a mix. I think.
It's gonna look like little cracker boxes.
I think if they were all 45, it would. That's why I think you 100, maybe, like I was thinking back in the 90s, maybe.
I think
3
you're
of them are
getting way
45.
ahead of where I'm at.
Okay. Or Skylar had, or do you want to see what Skylar said first?
Might be way ahead of, I laid out some 45, basically the lot
No,
size.
no, I
configuration
need,
you'd need.
no,
Okay.
I might have to wait, sorry.
Are we gonna allow like two-story homes there or just ranches?
There's none proposed. I am, and this is the third time that I've seen the housing, the plat, but I have reserved a lot of my comments because I thought that they were most appropriate here. And the less I talk, usually the better. I think the plan does not incorporate the green space that we talked about, the clustering that we talked about. There are no apartments in here. I know Skylar talked about that, in the phase 2 development, we could put apartments there. I don't know why we're gonna have a water issue and might have to have water storage tanks. Why we would choose to put apartments there. It has been brought up by, other board members. Is this? Do we want 200 more people living on these 45 acres? Where are they all going to go on ZZ and Scandia? So those are my big
Yeah, those are great
concerns.
questions to answer off the bat.
Okay.
Can I talk about the transportation one? About the 200 people and where they're gonna go? I think we have to remember, and that, I think that is a valid point. You know, we have planned that there's gonna be some bypass. We've never pursued the property. I do think we don't have the money, but I think we should start those conversations with the people that have that land to give us those accesses and then work with the DOT for money for acquisition. I think
Or it's just, or what about giving the village the easements? They can still own the property, sell it to somebody else, but the easements are there, and if there's grant funding for the road, for the access, and if the village gets money for the grants, puts in the road, all of a sudden their property has become more valuable because the road, granted, it's a huge parcel out there, but one road is already paid for by somebody else.
I think that's a great approach, you know, I think, so from a staff perspective, my understanding is there has we put it on a map and there's never been movement, nobody's ever taken it to the next step.
That's not correct.
So
There have been conversations.
yes,
Is there? Okay,
Yes.
because there's nothing in the files
Nope,
that
there are
show,
conversations.
okay. Not at committee meetings or anything
No.
like that, right?
No, with the property owner.
Okay, so I think that we need to formally take that to the next step, is my, just side note is one thing, I think that we need to agree as a committee, yes, staff should contact the property owner and begin negotiations, see what we can get, because it takes a while to work through all this, and I don't think it's fair to prevent people from having affordable housing because we're not prepared for that. But the thing I was gonna say about that is, I agree, Denise, 200 families is a lot to put out there, but you gotta remember, you're really just doing 10 right now, maybe. And they're not all one downtown, you know, it could be somebody who's working in Bailey's Harbor, so they're taking Woodcrest to Old Stage or something, so.
True.
So I don't really buy that argument right now. I also.
I'm just, you don't have to
No,
buy it,
not an
I'm just
argument.
making a
I know.
point.
I guess I'm just saying in my mind, that's how I think about it. And with the apartments, you know, the demand that we saw, there was more demand for the single family home. And you gotta remember, as people move into these, apartments open up. So just like, someone who's in an apartment and is trying to buy a home, they're gonna move in there. That means their apartment is now open for somebody that couldn't get into an apartment. So
But, yes, that's true. But at the $1,400, $1,500, $1,800
yeah,
that is out of many people's reach.
Yeah.
On the current rents around Sister Bay.
I know when we looked at this, and Skylar, you can chime in if I'm wrong on it, but when we looked at it from a planning perspective, you're not gonna put apartments in the middle of that, right? They're gonna go on the edge. They're gonna go either along Scandia, ZZ, or on a perimeter. It's not gonna be in the middle of your residential development. That's not,
Why? Tell me why.
Very good question, I guess. I just we assumed that single family residents want to be separated from large apartment, multi-occupancy.
I'm gonna tell you why.
Why?
I'm gonna tell, so I'm gonna put a planning perspective on it, because you're mixing multifamily amongst a residential subdivision. I mean, would you take the Glen Road apartment and put it on Fieldcrest? Probably
Yeah.
not. But, I mean,
I would have no problem.
right
with
now
that.
you have your R1 zoning, your R2, your multiple family, because you're trying to separate the uses. They're generating more traffic, maybe more noise, more, maybe higher density, so maybe you've got more infrastructure out there. I'm not saying that you don't incorporate the uses. What I'm saying is traditionally, that's what zoning is, right? You're separating those uses.
And maybe
So
that's
that
a
is-
problem. with
Yes, that is exactly what's gotten us to where we are right now.
That's
That
right.
has so many negative impacts on it. That's been happening since 1945. And
And
we've
what
got
did
to
I
undo
think?
that systemic
Right.
thinking, Julie.
And even though apartments aren't on this plan,
What I
it
said
is
was,
all separated.
So we're going
It's-
to say that, okay, you rent, so we're gonna keep you over here. You buy a house, so we're gonna keep you over here. And, yeah, that's not right.
well, as I was saying, that was traditional zoning. That's what we do, right? And
And
it's,
it's
there's,
really
there's
not
a-
done us well.
there's a huge wave of doing away with some of that, but there's still standards that you follow when you're.
Why?
looking-
Why do we follow those standards? Because it's what we've known, it's what we've known for the last 70 or 80 years.
Because one area is single family and one is multiple family housing zones.
But
You have to look
why
at
are
your
they?
infrastructure, so you're not gonna put a subdivision, you're not gonna put an apartment building with, let's say, 40 units on a narrow street. Why, right? Because now you've created traffic congestion and other issues. You're not gonna put a big apartment building where the garbage truck can't easily get to it, so it's not just a matter of.
We
you
can
have to look at-
design it however we
You
want,
can.
because we
Yeah,
have
there's a-
52 acres of
how
open
would-
space.
So the demand, the highest demand is for single family, not the apartments, but how would you design it? And that's what we're here for, right? Is,
So
What do
here's
you
what I
want?
think we need is we need to have multiple options coming to us that we can look at,
Wait, wait,
and say
wait,
we
wait.
like this and we like that,
you
instead of
guys
saying
tell us,
this.
you guys tell us what you want, because we could come back with 10 options.
So
You guys are
I,
the plan commission, you tell us what you want.
I don't like the senior housing next to the dormitories.
There is no senior housing, is there?
Well, on the map I'm looking at, there's senior housing. It's in the packet.
What page are you on?
Oh, yeah, it's behind the sewer and water.
Yeah, it's right by the sunwater. Yeah.
Put them out the basket.
I don't know what you're looking
Yeah,
at.
I don't
there.
I am
What-
looking at
What page?
after, page number.
It's on page 171.
Thank you.
Oh, they're looking at.
Oh, no, that's the old.
That's the old
Okay.
one.
Oh, no,
That's
no,
the-
you need to
forget
find this one.
That's the plan,
That's this.
that's what the ad hoc acquisition
Okay.
committee came up
This
with.
doesn't have it
Original.
labeled as senior.
Yeah, and it changed. They never met after that by themselves, so in December, that kind of changed.
Sorry, guys, sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
I was looking at.
You had a
same
spoiler.
thing. I have a really dumb question. What do we consider affordable housing?
Well, that's a really-
$300,000?
No, that's a really good question, because when Skylar was talking about a range of square footage, 900 to
Mhm.
1,600. Talked to multiple construction people, $250 a square foot. We're talking about 900 square feet, $225,000. 1,600 square feet, $400,000.
Cause those homes in Sturgeon Bay they're from 270 to 300 that I've looked at online.
I'd say 400,000 is not a.
And, well, here's my point. You think that the rent is high, $1,900 a month for a 2-bedroom house or apartment. If somebody has 5% down on a $300,000 home, that's 15 grand, the mortgage is $285. For principal, interest, homeowners, taxes, and PMI, which is private mortgage insurance, that payment would be over $2,500 a month. So it's just food for thought, because the
I
best,
hadn't done that math yet. Good for you,
well,
Laura.
and the best rate is if they have 20% down. Well, that's $60,000.
Right, yeah.
I don't know young people that have that kind of money.
So one of the things that we had talked about, and when we had met with the builder, is we had told him, we think you should try and keep them at or below 250. And depending on the design, I think that's very doable.
I don't think that's doable at all.
Well, I think, isn't.
Not for a
isn't Portside-
1,600, not
Not
even
the
for,
1,600.
not even
but the 1,200.
for.
the cheapest payment, now I'm using a fixed rate loan. I don't know what we're looking at as far as WIDA or anything else, but it was a 30-year fixed rate, so it was 7.484. And with 20% down, the payment is still almost $2,100 a month. But you don't have to pay the private mortgage insurance, which it protects the bank's investment in the property. Well, that can range anywhere from, one of them was $125, the other one's $185 a month, so that's a lot of money. If they have the down payment, it makes the cost much more reasonable for them.
And we do have the down payment assistance programs that we have researched to help a lot
Well,
of them.
and then,
Not saying they're all gonna fall.
and then I went to the next question. Is this gonna burden the taxpayers in any way by building this affordable housing for people that can't afford it? Are we going to burden the taxpayers after this year?
Patrice had that question last week. And that is the responsibility of the village board to make sure that doesn't happen.
But
Because
that is, now, okay, to get down in the weeds a little bit more. The money for the infrastructure, a certain dollar amount of money has already been.
it's set aside,
Is incorporated
Okay.
into, future budgets, okay?
future
So-
budgets.
This budget, right?
Well, no, because we don't have a payment on the infrastructure loan until next year,
Well,
right?
but
But let me finish. That if that infrastructure costs us more, we're gonna have a problem. If we incorporate this into a TIF district and we don't get the money back in a timely manner, then yes, it has fallen on everybody else in the village to support that. Does it necessarily mean that it's actually going to cost you any money? No, but it's yet to be determined.
well, and my thought was, we wanna move all the village buildings out there. That's gonna be a huge cost to taxpayers, I'm assuming. So I think that the village should be made aware that we wanna do all this, but this is how much it's gonna cost the taxpayers. Because I think it's kind of like a little secret that we're gonna do this really neat area and we're gonna move all the mechanical buildings out there and all the county buildings are gonna be in one spot. We're gonna have affordable housing. And then people that are here year round are struggling now with much higher tax bills. Businesses that close, they're not open for 8 months out of the year. So we have to go farther to do whatever we want to do, whether it's shopping, we have our choice of Piggly Wiggly, or we go to Sturgeon Bay or Green Bay. So those are issues, and if we're bringing in more people, again, how big do we want to be? Where are these people gonna work to support them year round? If half the businesses close, my neighbors.
Because I would imagine, Laurel, that they're already working someplace in Northern Door. They already have a job. But to go back to the money issue, there's something else. And Nate, chime in if I forget something or you just have something different to say. The finance committee met with Baird, who are our advisors. And knowing that we had a lot of big projects, lots of borrowing to do, going to be making payments for many, many years. Baird's structured, and that's if we just do what's in the plan right now. It doesn't mean, oops, something just popped up, where are we gonna find that money? If we do everything that we're planning, that our payments on debt will not change over, is it 25 years?
I think it's something like that. I think it goes, it peaks at 2025 and just goes up a little in 25 and that's relatively steady.
So finance has talked about that our debt, if we only borrow what we plan on borrowing at the rates, and they've gotten a lot better, plus we're bonding for some. Our debt payments won't change over the next 20-some years. So your taxes may go up for other reasons, but it won't be because of
The project.
the progress, the administration building, the parks building. It won't go up for those reasons. It would have to do with any additional borrowing or spending that the village did. And I know we're not supposed to really be talking about money, but it's a valid. But
Well,
it's a valid
and I've
concern.
been asked that, you know, why did our taxes go up? What are we doing and where's all this money going? And I wish I had sat in on one of the budget meetings just to hear what they were doing, because I don't understand how they went up so high. I know they went up because everybody's assessments went up, but you don't see any big stuff happening with all that it went up, and this is big.
Oh, this is incorporated into that.
Okay.
Can I just make
The parks building, the administration building, the infrastructure for the workforce housing, all of that. Is there anything else?
trails?
Some trails?
I also think that we're really far off where we should have a plan, and I would happily sit down and have a conversation with you on it, but I think that we're starting to get well outside of planning.
I just want to clarify one thing though, because it is important on this. It is not low income housing in here. It's all
Affordable.
workforce. They have to have a job. Not all, the majority of these people, I don't think are low income. Are they income constrained because they're working so hard and it's going to all their rent? Yes. But these are, a lot of these are at least one person working, maybe two, just trying to make it and get into it.
And you have the people that couldn't get into the Marissa Dows
So,
Yeah.
because they made too much money, so the other.
Yeah.
so those aren't gonna be restrictions in this area. Are we gonna
I don't
make
think
it?
we can predict that. I mean, like, I think that I am extremely leery of having anything like that on there, but. We don't know exactly what form this is gonna take.
Do you wanna do it like Sturgeon Bay is doing and saying that they have to work in Door County? Or with a Door County based company?
So something that Denise had suggested last board meeting that I'm
I know.
become much more comfortable with, and think is a really good idea at this point, after having a week to think about it, is we need to have a committee go through this and walk this all the way through, because it's so important. This project is so important that we do it right. As much as we want to do it fast, we've got to do it right. And we've got to do a better job of communicating with the public. And that means having a lot of public input sessions. And we've got to make sure that this continues going forward, because if the board changes substantially and there's not a will to do it, all of this could be for naught. And if we don't communicate with the public, we don't get public buy-in, it's gonna be a lot of wasted effort.
Are we excluding seniors from this? Like, what if you're a senior and you work a part-time job online?
So the
You
March.
can't get a house here?
The order, what the board had approved and what the RFP did and what the orders were workforce housing study and layout, and this property was to be developed with workforce housing.
That was our focus. It's not that we're excluding them, but they were not our focus.
Okay, but so they could apply and maybe get a house.
I think
Maybe
we would have to come up
housing.
with the review standards, like maybe you select workforce first, and if there's not somebody, then maybe you go on to senior. I don't know. We'd have to figure that out. The
I think-
priority list.
See, there's so many different models. There's so many different options on who lives there. And that's why I brought up last week that we need a committee to do all of that groundwork.
And you want people to live there year round. You don't want them to live here
Right. Just in someone.
6 months. What I was gonna say before is my neighbors bought their house, so they own and live in Sister Bay. And in November, they go to Florida and they work for 6 months. They come back in May and work because neither of them have a job that stays open year round for them. So their house just sits empty. They're not renting it out or anything, and they have people that keep an eye on it, but that shouldn't be what happens in this area.
That won't happen here.
Should we see
There are
what
so many things that we've got to think about and work through.
There's a lot of details,
Mm.
a lot of details. Sorry to say, Skylar. I really don't mean to be Debbie Downer. I just want to make sure we get it right because I think it's so important. That, now I forgot what I was gonna say because I apologize to Skylar. Shoot.
Well, I'll also apologize to you, Skylar, and I want to tell you, I think you're a very intelligent person, and I know you're gonna say smart things when you show up at our meetings. Even though it might feel like we're,
Even though I keep
Yeah.
saying, where's Tom?
And I'm
Where's
sorry
Tom?
that we put you at the back end of the meeting.
All right, I sort of figured it was gonna happen this way. But I agree with what you're saying, that the committee should be reformed. I do think there are a ton of questions before we get down to the nitty gritties of how wide of a lot we're putting on here, so. I guess. Tell me what you're thinking. I'd like to offer guidance in these scenarios, but I think you guys need to be the real drivers on.
I think that we could probably use your guidance midstream too, and not just wait to, hey, this is exactly what we want, you might help us
Right.
Exactly.
get some of that
Right.
in there, so.
So the thing,
In phases, right? It's gonna be in phases.
yes, so the thing I am leery about is out of respect to Skylar. They did this housing study, is probably the lowest cost we've ever paid for a study. And I think it's probably the best study I've seen that we've had on the books. One of them is that they present a concept plan, which they have done. Now, if we, Skylar's willing to work with us on stuff, we can pay him. But I think we have to give him absolute guidance, because for Skylar to come in every month with, do you like this one? Do you like this one? Do you like this one? He's not gonna donate that. So we have to.
No one would expect him.
I know, so we have to figure out how we're gonna pay for him, so this is what we got with our plan, and he's willing to say, if you have some tweaks in here, I can tweak it, but if we want to, but I think we have to give him the direction, and then.
I think
We have
Skylar's gonna
to-
have to wait for our direction because I think that comes from a committee. I think the housing study, I would like a hard copy of it. Could you do that for me, Janelle? So cause I have all my notes on 3 meetings ago, whatever it was presented, and then in the packet, instead of rereading it, then I have to go back to that other meeting, look at all my notes to talk. We have the committee, we present this, and maybe what we could do is come up with a bunch of questions that Plan Commission is interested in answers to help start the ball rolling on. What do you think? Where are we going? How do you think this looks? And then they just start tackling it and I know, Julie, that you write and you're not happy with me right now. I know.
Well,
When it says we need to get some consensus on road design within the next 2 months.
No.
well, so.
Oh, I remember what it was gonna be. All these decisions need to be made before there's ever a shovel in that ground for anything.
Yeah, so, I'll just show you some of my concerns on it, okay? And you guys aren't gonna like this. Sister Bay tends to spend a lot of money and study and put groups and groups together and then go back and have the new group look at, we had a group look at this for 1.5 years. And then
No, we didn't.
the Wiltie property, how it was gonna be developed. They met in 21. up to
Yes,
May of
I know they
2022.
did. They did not do their job.
Okay, but
Okay.
what I'm saying is, so then we got this far, we know the numbers, we know the need. In my opinion, the Plan Commission knows the development, the sizes, et cetera, better than any other committee, even if unless there's a group of architects or planners out there in Sister Bay. Be on that committee, I do think you guys are the best equipped to steer the design. Now, I do think, should there be a committee that looks at how you're gonna fund housing and everything? We got a pretty good handle on that, but if you guys wanna have a committee look at that and those programs, there's people here that can do that.
I
that
think
we've
we
been working
need
with.
to know, is the village gonna own the property? Are we gonna give it to the housing trust? Or the housing partnership? Are we going to let a developer just come in and build the houses and make money off of them? And, or is the village gonna retain ownership and we're gonna be the general? So we make sure that things are getting done
And would you
rightly.
really
And the
want that?
village buys them from the developer and we turn, I mean, there's 100 different ways that this could go. I am not informed enough, at least at this point in time, to determine what that should be. There are too many options.
And it's too big of a piece of property. to Just,
So that's the main thing I'd like to see come out of the committee. What model are we going to use for ownership? Are the banks, local banks, actually going to help some of these people, or is that a non-option? What are the other options then? There's just,
I think that we start to touch into some zoning issues though, because maybe we don't need to have everything nailed down, but. I think that my belief is the plan commission is perfectly good with cluster housing. As a model for this, and I don't think that we need to get really specific, but I think that we should give, that's absolutely the plan commission's purview to say, this is something we'd like to see. To pass that on to that committee, but I don't think a lot of that other stuff belongs at plan commission.
You don't have a housing authority or housing committee. So it kind of falls on your planning, but you could have a housing committee, permanent one, of people that are familiar with it.
we just have an ad hoc and we ask them to do something.
Would you feel,
And they would have, and that is how, when they hold those meetings. That hopefully the public would show up, listen to ideas and conversation. And feel like they're a part of the process and they know what's going on from start to finish.
And
I
we are not, plan commission is not that. Plan commission people don't come here except for two very unique individuals. That just kept showing up. And Steve, you haven't been here as much. But it's not a place that is very.
All these rules.
Well, right, and it's 9 o'clock right
Yeah.
now. I mean, for us to dive into something,
you have to meet more than once a month if you're gonna do that.
Skylar, what did you want to say?
I just want to know what your comfort level is. If you form this ad hoc committee, would you be willing, it doesn't have to be me, to have a consultant in the room during those time periods to help guide it and just
I think that's a great idea.
coalesce all the ideas, even if it's just as simple as putting them on paper in a logical manner so that they can come back 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, however often you meet to sort of help the
Is
process.
this your wheelhouse?
What's that?
Is this your wheelhouse?
Yeah, this is what I do.
Okay.
Housing study is beyond me,
Okay,
but laying lines.
and I
on
hope that
paper-
you didn't take any offense to any of that.
Oh, no,
so-
that's.
Okay, and because
I
you
get it.
said it wasn't your wheelhouse,
Yeah.
that's why I was trying to make a point.
Yes.
That they should not be sending you, it's not your thing.
I think I think that's a good idea, and I think we should try and get him on retainer or something, because there's a lot of stuff involved with this property that nobody bothered, that we didn't know or didn't look up. Like, for example, did we know there's wetlands out there? Nobody bothered to check that. Did we know that the whole property could not be served by water? Nobody had bothered to check that, I think a lot of people just thought we're gonna go out there and develop it, so I think you need the engineer when people start saying, we need to do this, somebody can say, yeah, but you gotta have a pond there, or you gotta do this, or you can't have the road do this because of this, or this is your topography, you can't be doing that.
And it doesn't have to be a big price ask. I mean, it can be a minor role for the engineer, just someone to hear everything and outline ideas that will or will not work based on engineering principles.
And you're gonna get bullied by us into making some of the ideas that you may not be comfortable with work too, but yes. Yeah, but I mean, you also keep us from going very far down a path that's just got nothing at the end of it.
Exactly.
I had a crazy idea. I'm just gonna throw it out. No, tell me just how crazy I am. What if you took the center of that parcel? And a lot, not all, a lot of your green space was the center of a circle. And it was your playground, and it was your pond, and it was your community garden, and it was just kind of outdoor space and whatever. And then you built, you know, a circle road around it, and you had houses, you know, on either side. And then you have another circle.
So the reason people don't do that is utility infrastructure. You basically have to lay straight lines for sanitary and water. So to do a circle, you're bisecting the circle,
Okay,
which means
I figured there had to be something.
there's ways around very large circles work. The chord of each circle is
Sure.
works, but.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, not small circles.
So you could accomplish that by having easements and creatively spacing areas. that
No,
have
no,
utilities
no, no, no.
underneath.
So,
Yeah.
and then the other question that I have, and is years ago on Plan Commission, I think we had talked about Celebration, Florida. You know, the whole town was built. It was built pretty well. And a lot of their residential districts, there might be parking on the street in some places, but not all. But everybody's garage was behind the house. And they had alleys. So, but then that means maybe you can have more narrow roads. Is that a lot more infrastructure? Are you duplicating a certain amount of it?
It's a touch duplicitous. The bigger issue is Wisconsin state planning laws require a 60-foot right of way. You could go down to a 50-foot if you have the code already in your village ordinance, which I don't think you do, and I'm not sure you want to. So you already have a 60-foot taking of area. So you're gonna put a road in there anyway. I'd have to look what an alleyway truly constitutes. If that's another 60-foot right of way, that's obviously just wouldn't work, but.
Yeah,
There are alleys in Wisconsin though.
I know there are,
Yeah.
which leads me to believe it's probably private easements on all of those parcels for that alleyway. Therefore, it's not part of the plat. But I'm just saying, if you already have a 60-foot right of way, there's no reason to do a one-way street or.
so we can't really have skinny roads then, can we, Nate?
You can, you just dedicate more of your right of way area to green space.
Oh, okay.
It's wasted, quote unquote.
Denise, too, a lot of those
No.
on there.
Well,
follow
you-
Quote
That,
unquote.
that idea, like you're saying, how the garage goes in back. A lot of those lots are laid out that, most of them are laid out that way, where you come in and you share a driveway and the garages are back, like you don't even see them from the road.
No, this is on the back of the house. You don't see it from the front of the house.
Yeah, yes, so it's,
In Celebration.
yeah, it was the same idea that we did. We're like, well, let's put the garage behind the home so you can't see it. Which is how most of these are laid out, but we couldn't do the alley, so it's a shared driveway where you come in and pull behind like a 1950s house.
So this is,
That's how we could make them.
we need to do with the R4s, we need to have like a zero setback, front setback off the road. Cause then you can be right up, because you wouldn't be on the road, you'd be on the green space. So then you can still accomplish that.
So that wasn't me, one of my talking points is you do have.
Share that with us now?
So I did rip off some just random setbacks for your R4 zoning, and there are some issues I think you should clear up with your zoning code on that. One of them being your front setback is 25 foot from center of right of way. We already have a 60-foot right of way, so you have 30 feet, so your setback is actually within
Oh,
public right of way area, so you
That
could
doesn't
build
work.
right up to the lot. Your side detached, your side loading garages have a 27-foot offset from property line, which is probably more than you need. And your driveways have like a 10-foot easement setback, whereas most of your other code only has 5 foot, so you're actually more restricted in R4 than you are in like R1 and R2. And that just adds up to more
sure.
area being taken, decreasing your density.
There's nothing that's zoned out for right now. R4 has been set aside as our
Yeah, it's the,
But if we
experimentation.
would choose in the near future, you know, to change it to R4, and I guess we should we be having that conversation next month on Skylar's suggestions for R4, if that's the direction that we're going in, to zone this.
Don't you have to now see how it's gonna be developed, so because I mean, you have to make the code fit the development, is my understanding.
True, parallel, it's sort of a cart before the horse, but I think you go on parallel tracks in the fact that you are reducing as much setbacks as you feel comfortable with, and that will only help your minimum lot size at 45 foot width attain a larger buildable.
I mean, we
footprint.
might have to have more than one public hearing, but what's glaringly obvious right now, couldn't we deal with that when we just have another public hearing on something else coming up?
We have the short-term rental stuff.
What if we give Skylar, I mean, like, my goal with R4 is to allow the most dense possible housing, and we might come back after we make that change, and we might decide that to be different. But I mean, when I'm thinking dense, I'm thinking in terms of the cluster housing, where we're gonna have these places clustered together, then green space clustered together. But whatever we can do to facilitate that and see what you come up with for suggestions, that's where I would like to have Skylar come back with.
Well, you'll have to work with Julie on your pay.
Okay.
In the payment.
Well, so what do you wanna do? Do you want me to send something to the board, a contract? For that, is that the recommendation from the plan commission?
Yeah, I mean, we don't, how much discretionary spending do we have?
This would have to come out of the money set aside for the Wiltsey project.
No, I thought plan commission had, X amount of thousands of dollars.
Yeah,
I would have to look, I'm just looking at it as part of the design and layout of the Wiltsey project.
well, I
So
think that
was looking at it.
we have. The plan commission has spent money in the past without getting direct approval to a certain dollar amount. I'm pretty sure. I mean, like, if we have to take it to the board, we have to take it to the board, but if it's,
It's a contract. We need to take a contract to the board. We have no authority to enter contracts on our own.
So yeah, go ahead, do that.
Because I know the Parks Committee also talked about having him do civil site design out there on by the Parks building. Okay, so should I pull off all the TID work that's being done, because the TID is on a timeline? We were gonna try and get this in the TID to help pay for some of the infrastructure. Do you think realistically, we should be waiting until next year to add it into the TID?
Because we can only have the TID for X amount of years, and then we can extend it for a total time span of 28 years. Is that what it is?
I don't know the exact number.
we're not, yeah, I mean, that's something along those lines. So like, bottom line is we only have so much of window, so why would we burn them
Right,
1 year right now?
right. That's what got us into the problem with downtown when Bob Cuffrin was here. And we put downtown in the TID, and then we bought Helms.
Yeah,
And
because-
just took millions off the
because
tax
what we
roll.
were trying to do was get it in the TID to help pay for the infrastructure, but it sounds like you're not gonna do infrastructure this year? Or
I-
maybe later in the year? I mean,
I can't imagine we're gonna be, I mean, we have too many things that we have to figure out. We have to have our plan buttoned up and ready before we have.
I can't imagine anything being done this year. It's unrealistic.
I have a comment from
Design.
Skylar about your plan.
you don't think they'll have enough where he'll be doing the engineering and the design of the road and everything?
Not
My
that this is-
comment is
No,
the dormitories, the purple. I mean, it doesn't seem, very nice at all to have anything close to that sewer and water plant.
So that is one of the points that you guys will have to come to a consensus on is. What's your setback from the wastewater treatment plant? Are you
Yeah.
abide by the 500 foot? Do you think something else is more applicable? I know Dan Clancy had said that you could put charcoal filters on some of the exhaust stacks to help with the smell.
there
Yeah,
is
but
not, everybody thinks that it smells horrible. most of the time, there is no smell.
It's gotta be really calm
But,
and
but
you.
do you want?
But you don't wanna be the guy living there and
People-
experience it.
The
Those are
people that
genuine
may
problems.
live right next door are not gonna smell it any more or any less than Stephanie and Dan Lundquist down the road. Because when it smells, and everybody in the area smells it under certain conditions. Living next door doesn't mean that you're gonna smell it every day.
But even like being that close to the sewer and water treatment plant, just the visual of it. I
Yeah,
would
but that's
pretty-
what trees are for.
I don't know, but I,
Think we should be proud of our plant.
no, but I wouldn't wanna live.
I love that my toilet flushes and it goes away
Absolutely.
efficiently.
And to be
I
honest,
told Dan I'll be mad if that
we
doesn't
placed
happen.
them there because J1 visa workers are usually
Not
4,
as
3, 5 months.
fussy,
on. Not
yeah.
wrong, year-round residents.
And I understand-
so-
And they
I
also work usually two
Yes,
appreciate
they are
jobs.
exceptionally.
But I mean, I don't know how the whole, how much we own, what that whole property looks like. So if there was anywhere else to put it, it was my
I-
suggestion.
So based on the conversation, do you think, and I know this is really a question for the board, but should we be renewing the? If we don't think we're gonna do any work out there, should we be renewing the contracts for the orchard and the hay? I mean, in my mind, I thought we were gonna be out there doing some engineering this summer.
This summer,
No.
no, not this summer. I think Sequus would be able to get through another cherry season. Because when do they shake? Ju-
August, beginning of August, end of July.
End of July, beginning of August. Yeah, I don't. You know,
think it's
unless
sure.
we met or this committee met every single week,
You still want.
I don't see it happening.
If you had an engineer, a final plat ready to go right now and said engineer, they would be this is 2 months of solid work to get it all engineered and permitted and ready to go, and then you have contractual stuff. I thought we could find the construction people, so you're a ways out. I think this summer you're probably safe with allowing Sequoia
Renewing the
to.
contract. Okay, cause I know he has called, he's asked about that.
Do we need to let them spray if it's not going to be, like, some of the stuff is to make sure it'll last for many years. Do we really need to let them do that then?
The ground's already contaminated.
Okay.
No, I'm not saying that that's a yes or a no. I'm just saying ground's already contaminated.
That's really another good point. Did you do an EPA phase 1 out there for?
Nope.
all of that? All right.
They haven't done anything on it.
Yeah, let's do.
I just hope it's, not another Larson parcel.
I didn't see any mixing sites on there when I looked, which is a good thing. But my research on it has just been through the GIS layers. And as far as I know, there's never been a soil test out there. I think we just purchased the property and people just thought we could go out there and develop it, but
If you want to go with us, we can tie that all into the wetland delineation that you're gonna need to appease the DNR. They can do an EPA phase 1 out there too.
Are you also doing the soil borings on the parks maintenance property?
No. Am I?
Who's doing that?
depends which RFP we select. Which proposer, some proposers included the soil.
Oh,
test.
some didn't. Okay.
Yeah, they usually do. structural
I'll get back at
borings.
you.
Okay. They usually do structural borings, which our company can do. I cannot, but we usually sub that out to.
Okay.
Same people they're gonna use.
Okay.
Okay, so, to keep things moving along, there's the recommendation to the board then that they create a housing committee, or like one that looks at financing, one that looks at design?
Let's call it a housing committee and let them figure that
Because
out.
they're gonna have different, your finance person isn't gonna necessarily be the same one that can look at design, I mean. It's,
I think,
if we wanna have a successful group. And not just do what we did last time.
you're asking what the recommendation should be from plan.
What is planning recommending to the board?
That they have a housing committee. That would be my recommendation.
To include, but not limited to, or what's that verbiage we use?
Including but not limited to.
But yes, thank you. That they research and come up with one or more recommendations on the model that we should use to make these affordable and keep them affordable for generations to come.
Who's gonna find a builder?
Do you want to see the work that,
There's one that's interested. I don't like them, but there's one that's interested.
do you want to see the work that we've done so far on all of that before we do that? We've
You
done a lot of-
you can deliver it to the committee. I mean, because I just think, the committee should talk to Marissa. There's, the Door County Housing Partnership. Miles has talked about, could we do something like Cottage Glen up in Ellison Bay that doesn't have sewer and water? How would that work? He also talked about that place in Egg Harbor,
Heritage Lake.
Heritage Lake.
We'd have to change our codes on that.
Cause is that Heritage Lake is
Heritage Lake is like, they're
a
small.
double wide?
Yeah, and there's a lot of issues with it because of how they have gotten their covenant set up.
I
You
think-
can't live there, but that's, well, we could ask Ken about that.
You
He's got
can't
a place
live
there.
there.
You can't live there for more than 6 months. Ken
Yeah,
got
it's
the
like a
residential
campground.
too.
You have to be gone for 2 or 3 months.
Why?
Yeah, because they close it down. My girlfriend just sold hers. She had one there for about 10 years.
Even if you have
They're
two-
not winterized, right? And occasionally, there's a few on the outskirts that people have stayed there year round. But they basically want you out by December and they can come back in the end of March. or
I
something
think the
like that.
infrastructure was laid out as a campground and I don't think
Yeah.
the buildings meet UDC standards.
No,
that
they're
make
they're
apartments.
like, what do you call those? The park
Modular
models.
homes.
They're not even like a modular home. They're more like a park model.
Yeah, there's state laws on all that and that's why they can't do that.
So at least they should come up with one or more ideas on how we do this, what model we follow, who we work with, who owns it, who sells it, who, whatever.
Do you want to make that motion?
No,
It's just a, not a
It's a
motion.
consensus.
yeah, well, I think it's a consensus. And then, if we give them any, I think that's a really big one, and it's gonna take quite some time. And if we come up with other things that we want them specifically to do, we will dole that out at that time, but that's more than enough to start them off with. I mean, do they need to pick out the design of the houses? I don't think so.
No, I mean, it's gonna be more general than that, like again, cluster housing, how. They probably need to look at the financial aspect of it because the size of the lot is gonna have a big impact on
Right.
it and the cost of the infrastructure.
Right, and I think they'll have to review not just, the housing study, but the notes from the in-person that you had and the breakdown of the wants and wishes.
Don't we have consensus here that we do want cluster housing?
Yeah.
So can
Yeah.
we at least forward that? to
Yeah.
Skylar?
Yeah.
So he can work on that? So,
Well, I think he can keep that in mind as he does work for us, but I don't think he's
Yeah.
got a lot to,
Yeah.
we've got a lot more things to throw at him before he's gonna start.
Yeah. Put them together.
Yeah, we've gathered a lot of stuff we can forward, cause like. The home in Hickory, the down payment, the different programs, the different models. We've got a lot of work we can share with them, which hopefully makes it easier for them.
I mean, just listening tonight, it seems to make sense to me that we should be maybe focusing on a smaller footprint, a smaller home that they can afford.
And that's
Because even if they do work here and they're gonna have to work here, our wages here are not very high to afford over $2,000 or even even a $1,000, $1,500 a month mortgage is hard for people.
I mean, they're paying that in rent already.
I know, I know.
This is, you know,
But
at
when-
least they're investing in something.
Right, which is great, but I just think that we, the size of the house is gonna have to be, a smaller home.
Well, one of the things that from Julie's notes from that meeting, the public input session is I'm presuming that this was everybody's wish list, that they wanted a 3-bedroom home and a 2-car garage and a bigger lot, and all of that comes at a price that is not workforce housing and people will not be able to afford.
Right, so it's
I mean,
less in.
The
what did
first
they
house
say?
I bought, if you stepped in the shower, you might have ended up in the basement because the floor was so rotten. I mean, there are things that as a first-time homeowner,
Right.
you have to get your foot in the door and work your way up.
Yeah, so,
They did understand that some of the questions we had out there is, okay, you want this, but would you accept this? And
They said, what is the biggest priority? And their biggest priority is making sure it was affordable.
Because I also think even though it didn't click high here with the majority of people, is I think you have to build some 2-story.
Well, if
I mean,
you
you
have a
save money.
45-foot lot, you almost have to have at least like a Cape Cod style house. And then you have a second floor, you have room for another bedroom, maybe a bathroom up there. And you can easily put it on a 45-foot lot, because my house was 45 by 120. And it was a Cape Cod.
Rent was 780.
Yeah, it wasn't-
It was teeny, man.
It-
It took 40.
Well, the first floor was 750. It was like 1,030 square feet. So it was livable for us. There was only 3 of us. And if you just have 2 people in those kind of houses, that
Or
works.
one.
But yes, but you can put a nice little Cape Cod on 45-foot wide, but I don't know how deep you want to make it. And you don't have to have it that deep either.
we did show them models like that, and there were people that liked it. So,
Well,
it
some
was
of
a
the-
good blend, I would say.
Some of the stuff in the original pamphlets that we had showed all these pretty little houses and there were a lot of 2-story ones or 1.5 stories. And the variety makes it more attractive.
We did show them those similar homes like that, some of those same pictures. And there were some that liked that, so it was, you need that variety, but
The ones in Sturgeon Bay, I don't know how that's gonna look overall because they all look basically the same. And they're on slab. So there's no extra storage. There's not even a crawl space. Those are
well,
on
we have
slab.
to have ours on a slab too.
Oh, yeah, do not, oh, please don't build anything with crawl space.
But the point is, if they have
Please.
no sort of storage,
Nobody wants to be climbing around in crawl
No.
spaces for utilities or putting their Christmas ornaments down there. We'll build them a closet.
yeah,
Please, no crawl spaces.
They're worthless.
So that's one of the trade-offs they actually did in Sturgeon Bay is all of those houses got 2-stall garages because they were on slabs and didn't have a basement because of the storage. Well, okay, well, it costs a lot to dig down, especially since
Sure,
they're bedded out
sure,
there.
and I get
So you get a garage,
yeah,
half of it's gonna double the storage, not actual car space.
or they can have an extra room in their house and have a 1-car garage.
Yeah,
House people, not cars.
Well, we have to train them in
Nate,
that
you can
mindset.
keep beating that into our heads. Some of us might come around. But everybody in this survey, this input, they want a garage.
It's the climate.
You argued with me on where to put garbage cans because you said your garage space was way too valuable for a garbage can.
I would just assume it's not even used as a garage. It's just another room.
You're
Person in it.
unique. You are unique.
I've heard that.
No. I have a heated garage. I work in mine.
So Julie.
Yeah.
Now, you said You're gonna see the creation of a TIF district for that is put on hold. What else did you say would have to happen if they do that ad hoc committee? There was something else, I can't remember what it is.
We will put the TID on hold, which. Cause to have it effective in fall, we had to start that now, and that was gonna help pay for. Some of the improvements we're doing out in that whole part of town there. And then we were gonna let Sequest know that he could
Oh, that's what it was, thank you.
use the orchard.
Okay,
That's the
Still have
Sequest,
to-
right?
You still have to annex
No.
that.
Jim, yeah.
That, the Wiltsie's property is already annexed, we annexed that in 22.
That's the across the street.
By the old.
Yeah, but is that gonna be annexed, or are you gonna wait to annex that until the? I don't understand it.
I think, we're gonna make a recommendation to annex that.
Okay, so.
okay, I'm not going through matters to be placed on future agendas. Staff should have that all under control. Next meeting's coming up this Saturday at 10. The housing study presentation. Public input session is February 10th at 9 AM at the Village Hall, and our next meeting is February 22nd. And TID meetings to be determined, we're not having.
I think we have to take those off and just postpone any development out there for a year
Okay.
for. Expanding the TID anyway.
Alright. Is there a motion to adjourn at 9:25?
I motion.
Motion by Harp,
A second.
second by Shinnick. All those in favor respond with an aye. Aye. Opposed, carried. Sorry, it's way past your bedtime, Ron. I really am. And Marge did text me.
Oh, so she's excused.
Yeah, unexpected situation. Sorry, we'll explain